Hi, this is David Oman with HouseAtTheEndOfTheDrive.com. You're listening to KTLK, The Fringe FM.
Oh, this is good. This is really good.
The Fringe FM has some of the best shows in paranormal, like Lighting the Void, The Secret Teachings, Into the Paranormal, Alex Exum, and so much more.
Yeah, baby!
We're live every night with hours of live original programming. Plus, we air some of the best shows in this genre, and we're not afraid to tell it like it is. Check us out at thefringe.fm. Follow The Fringe FM on Facebook and Twitter at The Fringe FM.
Hi, guys. Matt Ray with America's First News. And if you're like me, you're probably still looking for that special Christmas gift for your wife or girlfriend. Treat her to the very best this year. The world's softest pajamas from Pajamagram. Because they are the world's softest pajamas, they're lighter than a cloud, softer than a bunny. They're like cashmere, only better, and you'll love the way they look. She'll love the way they feel. The softness, the warmth, the comfort. And if you're like me, you can't stand wrapping presents. It's tough to do. Well, get this. Pajamagram includes free gift packaging. All you have to do is make the order, and delivery is guaranteed by Christmas. Plus, they're backed by a 100% lifetime guarantee. You risk nothing but the look on her face, guys, when she opens the Pajamagram. So go to Pajamagram.com right now. That's Pajamagram.com. Tell them Matt Ray sent you. That's Pajamagram.com. Tell them Matt Ray sent you.
I'm Ryan Gable, and I want to remind you to keep your radio, phone, tablet, or computer tuned to the Fringe FM, and visit the website, thefringe.fm, to listen to the entire lineup of shows. You can also catch my broadcast, The Secret Teachings, Monday through Friday, beginning at 12 a.m. midnight U.S. Pacific Time, right here on the Fringe FM.
Live for 3 hours every Saturday night. It's a show that engages the mind, makes you think, and maybe even challenge what you think you know. Hi, I'm Jeremy Scott of Into the Paranormal, where we talk about topics that are anything but mainstream, somewhere between abnormal and paranormal. Bring an open mind and join us for Into the Paranormal, live Saturdays at 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern on the Fringe FM.
Who were the real ancient Egyptians? What is it about ancient Egypt that captivates us all? The critically acclaimed series Magical Egypt is back with all new episodes. Let Chance Gardner and company take you on another adventure through Magical Egypt in the new series Magical Egypt 2. Magical Egypt 2 attempts a forensic reconstruction of the science of the ancients through a study of ancient aesthetics. Also, the best researchers and authors in the field like John Anthony West, Graham Hancock, Laird Scranton, Robert Bouval, Lon Malduquette, Aaron Cheek, and more join together to explore the topics of the esoteric and the hidden messages of the ancient Egyptians. Just go to magicalegypt.com right now and put in the code word FRINGE and get 10% off any download or order, including the groundbreaking original Magical Egypt series, as well as the new episodes in Magical Egypt 2. Also, check out the great work and the companion series at magicalegypt.com. Click the banner on the Fringe FM or go to magicalegypt.com and use the code word FRINGE and get 10% off your order today while it lasts.
Hi, Jeremy Scott here from Into the Paranormal, and I'm back live Saturdays at 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern, right here on the Fringe FM.
We told you weeknights on the Fringe FM are now even better, and we mean it.
Do it live!
Where else can you hear the best shows and the best talent? Kick off your evening with our newest host, Alex Exum, live at 7 p.m. Pacific, 10 Eastern. Hang out with me, Joe Roop, on Lighting the Void at 9 Pacific, midnight Eastern. Ryan Gable expands your mind on The Secret Teachings at midnight Pacific, 3 a.m. Eastern. We're bringing the heat every single night. Fire it up, the Fringe FM.
Paranormal News, I'm John Jeter. What's happening to Saturn's rings? Apparently, they're disappearing. Planetary scientists say a process known as ring rain could occur within 100 million years, where the rings disintegrate and fall into Saturn.
The rate of disappearance in this ring rain study has allowed scientists to infer that Saturn's rings formed less than 100 million years ago. This means Saturn wasn't born this way. as the planet is known to be over 4 billion years old.
This discovery is based on observations from NASA's Voyager probes and Cassini. They analyzed falling material to calculate how fast the rings are evaporating. James O'Donoghue of NASA's Goddard Space Flight Center says, "We estimate that this ring rain drains an amount of water products that could fill an Olympic-sized swimming pool from Saturn's rings in about half an hour." Speaking of things disappearing, the methane that scientists thought Mars was covered in is gone. Or was it ever there? In 2003 and 2004, NASA and the European Space Agency revealed they had found methane on the red planet. It was corroborated by NASA's Curiosity rover in 2014. New research, though, shows otherwise, calling into question the presence of the gas. The ExoMars Trace Gas Orbiter began monitoring and analyzing the atmosphere of Mars in 2016, and to date, its sensors have not detected atmospheric methane. But their data is not yet overwhelming enough to dispute the evidence for Martian methane, man. One angle that scientists are considering is that rather than originating in the atmosphere, the methane may seep out of the Martian soil, which would make it easier to be detected with a rover. Read the news at ParanormalRadio.com. I'm John Jeter, and this is Paranormal News.
Message is being broadcast by the Department of Defense of the Republic. At 2 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, multiple unidentified objects were confirmed to have entered Earth's atmosphere.
Discovery Houston, 20 seconds to LOS T-Drift. Contact, I am in orbit.
The first message that comes to you is you are a divine being. You matter. You count. You come from realms of unimaginable power and light, and you will return to those realms.
The vast stretches of the unknown and the unanswered and the unfinished still far outstrip our collective comprehension.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Broadcasting from Forest Tower Studios, all the way from the Deep South. Now, here is your host, Joe Root.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Joe Roop, and this is Lighting the Void. It is Tuesday night, January the 1st, on into January the 2nd, and we are live on KTLK Digital Broadcasting, The Fringe FM, and our website is lightingthevoid.com. The network website is thefringe.fm. At any point in time, if you want to call into the show, you can call the call-in number. It's 1-800-588-0335, and that is toll-free from the United States or Canada. And there is a call. I guess there's a call queue in there. So if you make it to the queue, just wait around and we'll pick it up. But tonight, we're going to do a kind of a New Year special. Where are we going in 2019 as far as that goes? But we got a kind of a cool surprise for you. Dark Waters is going to stop by for the first part of the show, and we're going to hang out and tell some stories. Now, keep in mind that after Dark and I can do this discussion, I want this to be more interactive. And Dark Waters also has his own radio network. So you guys know, if you've used the Paranormal Radio app or any of the apps out there that you listen to digital radio with, then you know that Dark Waters, his station, is kind of doing good things. So that ought to make you excited, because there are good things coming in 2019, and especially the form of digital radio. I also want to say that the last message that I got from my partner and, I guess you could say vice producer on the network, Eric Markham, the last message I got from him is that his mother wasn't doing so well and they were doing preparations, and I think that she's passing. and they were getting a priest. And so if you know Eric, if you're friends with him on Facebook or anything like that, if you could send him your love, that would be great. So yeah, we're in a new year. We're going to talk about a lot of different models, and I told you we're going to fine-tune the microscope, and we can talk about that a little bit later. But right now, Dark Waters is joining us on the program, and the website is iamdarkwaters.com. I think this is your third time being on Lighting the Void, and it's always cool to have you. We always end up hanging out on the holidays. You ever notice that?
I know. It seems like every time it falls on a holiday.
Yeah, it's crazy, and I think it's a cool thing, but you're the only one. I think I would kind of like to talk to a couple of other people, but you're one of the only people that I talk to about this cryptid subject, because, to be honest with you, man, you convinced me about this. You and a couple of other people, because I have this thought that things sometimes cross into this world from the other world. I guess you could say the other world. Like UFOs, things of that nature, sightings, all of these other things that we discuss. But the idea that there's creatures that are already here, I think maybe one of the reasons why I have a hard time accepting that, man, is maybe just because it freaks me out, to be honest with you. Maybe I don't want to.
Well, no, the whole concept of, cryptids being here on this planet with us and being able to exist with us and coexist with us and not be seen, not be detected, it is a very frightening thought. But I'm of the mind that there's a mixture of things going on. Number one, there are flesh and blood creatures and entities and what you would call real monsters that are here on this planet. But also there are extra-dimensional and multi-dimensional beings and creatures that people are encountering. But just because they're on another dimension doesn't mean that they are not here. They just exist in a dimension that we are not able to perceive. So when people ask me about it, I say it's all here with us now. It's just that our human perception doesn't allow us to perceive it. And the more stories I hear from people, and the more people I talk to, I get more and more evidence to support that. And is it scary? Yes. Is it something that people should be aware of? Absolutely. Is it something that the majority of the people are aware of? No, but I believe that in the near future, people won't have a choice but to acknowledge and accept some of the things that are going on.
Right. And I think that I'm starting to learn some new things too, because I like to talk about astral travel and all of the stuff when it comes to consciousness and esoteric and magic. But the cool thing about all of this is the more I learn, even though there's a lot of things going on, I'm starting to learn that, I guess you could say, dreams, astral travel, some things that we talk about in the esoteric, I always want to put them in little different compartments or on shelves. Okay, this belongs over here and that belongs over there. But in reality, there's consciousness and then there's the unconscious. And it seems to me that trying to figure some of these things out, it might actually be impossible. But if we put it all in one thing, it's good. But when it comes to cryptids, that is a 100% experience thing. I think until someone has a real experience, it's very hard for their brain to conceive that that's even possible.
No, absolutely. I think the cryptid topic, you start talking about things like Bigfoot and Dogman and many of the other cryptids out there, it's probably more difficult for someone to accept that than for someone to accept like a demonic encounter or an alien encounter, partially because Hollywood really emphasizes, aliens and demons. Every month or so we have a new demonic possession story coming out. We have plenty of alien stories, but you have very few stories about Bigfoot, and very few stories about Dogman as we know Dogman to be, versus, just a traditional werewolf, a human being transforming into a werewolf. So I think when you start talking about the topic of cryptids, because Hollywood has pretty much ignored it, I think it makes it a lot more difficult for people to kind of digest that information, and it makes the leap is a little bit harder for people. Now, when you start talking to people who live in rural areas around the world, not just in America or in Canada, they don't have a problem at all. They completely understand. They encounter things in the woods all the time, and then also a lot of people are disconnected from the land. I myself am very disconnected at this point in time. We have all this technology, so we don't spend time in the woods. We don't spend time in environments where we're having these encounters, and that's another thing that makes it harder for people to believe, because we're just not in that environment like we used to be years and years ago.
Right. You, like me, I imagine, are in the studio a little bit more than usual, probably. Running a radio network, and the way you done it is the exact way. Like, I mean, I can't say I'm proud of you, Dark, because it's like, but who am I? But I am, because the way you're doing it is kind of the way that I want to do things, because we know there's radio lovers out here, and people always are like, podcast this, podcast that. And I get a few complaints about, just a few. Well, you got advertisements and commercials, and I'm like, look, this is a radio show. We have archives that we podcast, but we love radio. We love live radio, live interaction, but we do have replays during the day. And then you made Dark Waters Radio, and I listen to it a lot, and it sounds like we're getting somewhere now, I really believe that.
No, absolutely. Well, I appreciate it, man, and I'm working on it. And I would say I had a roadmap for 2018. I got 90% of the things complete on that roadmap. The other 10%, I'm going to have to carry over. Part of that 10% is a video game. We just got our comic book done, and those are getting ready to start shipping. I got the first shipment of them in from China, but they were all wet and just a big pile of mush, so they have to reship them. But the Siege of Lock and Ranch comic book is going to be shipped out probably by mid-January, which will complete that. And then I wanted to roll out the video game simultaneously, where people can have a gaming experience where they can actually play through that story. So overall, my goals, I'm hitting those goals. As far as the radio station is concerned, that I have huge plans for that. My biggest thing is, this field, although we talk about very real things that happen to people, real encounters, real frightening encounters, if we want to bring attention to the truth and what's going on, it has to be through the form of entertainment, because entertainment is more readily acceptable than just someone saying, oh, I saw a Bigfoot, or I saw a 10-foot walking werewolf. Like, people don't digest things that way. So the way you shed light on things is through the entertainment side. Although it's true, 100% true, the encounters are true, it still needs to be presented as entertainment, because that way it gets past the conscious mind of, oh, this is BS, and it starts to hit the subconscious mind. And all you need to do is crack the door for a person in order for them to have, digest the fact that there's a possibility that something like this can happen. And once that's, you got that subconscious mind cracked, and the person can say, okay, well, maybe this is possible, then they'll go out and start seeking information and learning. And that's how we get new people to come into the industry and actually start taking a look at the information that we have. And then they'll find people like a Linda Godfrey or someone like that who has a huge, extensive collection of written works on these topics. And because the supporting evidence is there, it's just that they can't make that leap from just idly sitting on the sofa, living their lives and thinking about, paying the light bill and paying their phone bill, to, oh, is there really something out here in these woods? It's a very difficult leap for the average person to make unless they had some type of encounter, like you said. So that's what I'm pushing towards, and I'm excited about what's going on. I really, really am excited about what's happening.
Well, you talk about the Siege of Lockett Ranch. That story to me was, I don't know why anybody hasn't made, unless they already have, I just haven't found it, why anybody hasn't made a movie or something about that, because that was, correct me if I'm wrong here, but that was a family pretty much in war with some, dogmen, basically, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yep, absolutely.
We played it quite a bit here on the network when we played your shows and stuff, and I wanted people to And people would ask me, who is this? Where is this from? You know, and I say, it's Dark Waters. I'd give them your information, go there. And that story right there took a lot of people in, because it was it's hard to believe if you just talk about it in general, right? But when you get into the details of the story and the emotions that the family went through and everything that happened, you really start to think, man, this really happened. You know, this whole thing, this terrifying event that they went through.
And we've had people contact me about taking that and turning it into a movie. The only thing was I wasn't ready to do that. I had 2 different people contacting me and say, "Oh, we want to turn the story into a movie." When I did the research on the individuals, it didn't seem like they would be good people to go in business with and try and do it with. So I just said, hey, you know, it can sit where it is for right now until the right person comes along to work with, and somebody that I can trust and somebody I can actually do some business with. So I've had offers for that and a couple of other stories that people wanted to do things with. But at the end of the day, I'm a little cautious about that kind of stuff, because what I've discovered is I think I kind of touched the underbelly of the paranormal world. I don't think I really do touch the underbelly of the paranormal world. For example, there's another album coming out called Run, Hide, Run that I'm doing right now. I'm in the middle of producing. And the stories from this album are stories that people share with me, but they're so frightening and so terrifying that I know for a fact someone is going to want to take at least one of these and say, oh, we can do a little short movie on it. But at the end of the day, what I want to do is make sure it's represented the right way.
Right.
And like, I give you an example, one of the stories. A gentleman called me from Houston, and he's a friend of a guy I went to high school with. This guy I went to high school with, his name was Glenn. And Glenn found out about 3 months ago what I was doing as far as the Dark Waters brand, and he started listening to it. He was like, yo, man, this is dope. I really enjoy this, man. I'm going to share it with my friends. And that's the door being open to people, because most people have paranormal encounters and experiences. They may not have a Bigfoot or a Dogman experience, but they always encounter something that's strange and weird. They need permission to talk about it. And that's part of what I do is when you share these stories and when you share your own story, you give other people permission to share their story. So make a long story short, he calls me. Glenn gives him my number. He calls me and he says, hey, man, you know, I was talking to G Money and I want to tell you about this experience I had. And he's like, but you're not going to believe it. I said, bro, you will be amazed at the type of stuff that I've heard. I said, give it a shot. And so he goes into this long diatribe about Jay-Z, the rapper. And he was like, well, did you know that Jay-Z did a song called Lucifer? I was like, yeah, it was on his Black album. And I said it was produced by Kanye West. He was like, well, have you ever heard the original song that they did the sample from? And I was like, nah, I never heard the original song. So he was like, it's called Chase the Devil. He was like, go listen to the original sample, then call me back. So I'm like, okay. So I listened to the original sample. It's a reggae song. It's actually pretty cool. And I call him back and we start talking. He says, well, man, when that album came out, he was like, I was so excited. I went to the store and bought the CD. And he was like, when I'm driving on the highway after buying the CD, he was on the interstate. He said he started to get these goosebumps and chills listening to that song. And I was like, what do you mean? He's like, I felt like something was in a car with me. And I got these goosebumps and chills. And if nobody's ever heard the song, it goes, Lucifer, star of the morning, I'm gonna chase you off of earth. And then that's the hook to the song. And it's like, Lucifer, Lucifer, son of the morning, I'm going to chase you out of earth, right? And then Jay-Z raps, but that's the hook. And so he was like, man, you know, I'm listening to that song over and over and over and over again. And he's like, I kept on listening to that song. And finally, about a week later, I went by one of my best friend's house to play John Madden. And he said he was losing in the game of John Madden. So he wanted to put on that song to kind of inspire him to help him focus. So he puts on the song. And he's playing John Madden with his friend. He's kind of bobbing his head through these headphones. And then he blacks out. And I'm like, well, bro, what do you mean black out? He's like, no, I blacked out. Like, I don't remember what happened. But when I came through from being blacked out, my best friend was literally sitting on my chest. And his wife was sitting with her butt on my ankles. I'm like, what? And he was like, yeah, they were sitting on top of me. I said, okay, this is getting interesting. He proceeds to tell me that during that time period where he blacked out, his friend told him that his eyes glossed over. They turned white, like the pupils turned white, and then they turned all black. And Joe, you got to understand, I'm on the phone with the dude, and I've talked to so many people. When people have attachments, and now I can feel it because I pray so much is for my protection, for me to keep things off of me.
Right.
I start to feel it. And so, my spidey senses start tingling. And he says, man, he told me my eyes turned white and then they turned black. And then I just got up and I started tearing up his house. He told me I kicked the TV. I smashed the glass coffee table. I started cursing out his wife. And I was like, bro, what do you think it was? He's like, well, no, let me finish telling you what happened. So his friend played football for Alabama. And when he starts insulting the wife, his friend just punches him, bing, knocks him down. Because now he's insulting and threatening this man's wife in the house. His friend punches him, jumps on top of him. And when he comes, when his friend kind of repeats more and tells him more of what he said while he was holding him down and his eyes were still black, he kept on whispering, Lucifer, 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 over and over and over again. And I said, well, bro, what do you think that was? He said, man, I really think that song opened me up to being possessed by something. And he said, have you ever heard of anything like that? And I said, I know that we can open ourselves up to different entities. I said, well, we can strengthen certain entities. And I went on to tell him about a song that I discovered that I used to use to help me focus. But then I realized after listening to the words of the song that song actually was talking about the devil. And it's a song by Kanye West called Amazing. And if you listen to that song, like the beat is amazing, the hook is amazing, but it's one of those songs where you don't really listen to the lyrics. But once you listen to the lyrics, you're like, wait. This dude is talking about a demonic entity. So I stopped listening to it. But even when I played that song 8 years ago, it would allow me to focus and kind of like I had these black chalkboard walls at that point in time in my house. Like, so if you imagine an office with 3 walls that are painted with black chalkboard paint, right? And I would use that song and I would say, okay, I need to accomplish ABC. And I would take the chalk and I would write on those walls. And by the time that song was over, I would have mapped out. If I was trying to buy a piece of property, by the time that song went off, I had mapped out how to buy 30 pieces of property. No money down. It's like it opened my mind up to allow me to kind of flow the juices to flow. But then I realized, wait, something's not normal about this. Something's not normal about this song. Something's not normal about this feeling. And I stopped it. So I can relate to what he was going through. I'm just glad nothing like that ever happened to me. So I say all that to say, people are encountering things everywhere. It's just they need permission to talk about it. What I mean permission is they need to know that they're not crazy. And that's one of the things that's so dismissive about this industry and the paranormal world as a whole. Not the industry, but how people treat other people when it comes to the paranormal. It's, oh, he's crazy. Mm-hmm. And that's so dismissive and insulting that it's ridiculous. And people never take the time to question, whoa. The person that's talking to me, what's their character? What type of person are they? What type of life have they led? Are they a weak person? Are they a weak-minded person? And most of the times, the average individual has a serious amount of intestinal fortitude. So you have to say to yourself, what happened to this person to make them feel this way? Or what happened in this person's life to make them behave this way based on this encounter? And I just think that we got to get past the crazy where everybody's crazy. It's so easy to dismiss people calling them crazy. Once we get past that, we'll really, really get down to the bottom of it. But also, as a community, the paranormal community, we have to oust those who actually are crazy. Like, there are some people who really are, like, they bugging. They'll take a picture of the sky and be like, oh, look at that UFO. And it's like, it's the clouds, bro. Right. But we kind of let those, we let those people hang around, and they give the industry and they give the field and they give the paranormal a bad name. Or they'll take a picture of a bush or a tree and be like, oh, there's Bigfoot in that tree. Well, no, bro, that's just a broken limb, a tree limb. That's not a Bigfoot, or it's a bush. but we kind of readily accept those people, and those people who probably have some type of mental illness or something else going on, those are the people who are the loudest, and those loudmouth people draw the wrong attention. So I kind of got off track, but you get
no.
where I'm going
I
with
mean, things to me can be crazy, but I don't necessarily think people are crazy. There are crazy people, but if something like that happens to me, that's, like, that's crazy, but it could happen. Now, I've never experienced anything like that, but it doesn't, and that's what I think more people need to tell themselves. Look, I've never experienced something like that, but maybe somebody has. And until you have experienced it, imagine. What I try to do is I try to imagine myself experiencing what you're talking about, and then try to think, what would I say? Would I tell anybody? Everybody's going to think I'm crazy. And so it's a good thing that they have these outlets where they can come to you and talk about it. And I'm sure some of them, remain anonymous. But that brings me to the question about the music industry, because we talk about Hollywood, the music industry, and how there's a lot of hidden and occult things in there. And a lot of it's hype, I think. But doesn't mean it's not there just because it's hyped up. And so I don't listen to probably rap and Kanye and stuff as much as others do, but I wonder why that's always in their music now. It didn't used to be like that.
No, it wasn't. In the black community, it wasn't at all. I mean, in rock and roll, there always was that I sold my soul to the devil type of thing. But in black music, it wasn't there as prevalent. Now, if you go back, though, if you go back to some of the old blues music, like Robert Johnson, who they say sold his soul to the devil, B.B. King, who they say went to the crossroads. So you'll find some of that along the way. But at the end of the day, I really believe that that industry where people are pursuing fame, and to be honest with you, I think that's one of my problems right now, is that, and when I tell you I've had offers, I had some offers. I don't want to be famous because I know what comes with it. I have friends who play professional basketball. I have friends who played professional football. I have friends who are actors. They're on the Sci-Fi Channel right now doing movies. I don't want to be famous because there's other crap that comes along with it. But I think when you start pursuing fame, there's a cost to be paid. And I don't think I know there's a cost to be paid. I'm sorry. And let me speak in a definite terms of what I do know. There is a price to be paid to reach certain levels of success. And I've seen this throughout business. I've seen this throughout the finance industry. For example, about 4 years ago, I met a guy who's a billionaire. I was trying to get him to, maybe 6 years ago, I was trying to get him to invest into a Bitcoin mining farm here in Louisiana, right? Went to his house, sat down and talked with him, and he told me it was a ridiculous idea. At this point in time, Bitcoin was like $300 a coin at that point in time. And I made the presentation. He's like, "Oh, you're dumb, you're stupid, that's a bad idea, blah, blah, blah." I was like, whatever. And we ended up sitting out on his kind of terrace or balcony, which is above the Mississippi River, in like this super exclusive condo. I mean, it's at the Riverwalk or the riverfront. I mean, it's only like 20 of these available. And he, for some reason, he starts opening up about his life, which at that point in time, I was honestly pissed off because he had told me no. But he starts telling me about money, and he was like, I would do anything to have my son back. And I'm like, well, what do you mean? He was like, well, I lost my son in a car accident. And he was like, I lost my son in that car accident, but I also gained millions of dollars within the same year. And I was like, wow, that's pretty sucky. You know what I'm saying?
But that's awful weird, though. There's got to be more to this, I'm sure.
And then when you look at it, if you go back and you look at every last one of the major celebrities, each and every one of those people lost someone close to them. I mean, you can rattle them off. I mean, one after the other, they've all lost someone that was, like, talking about Kanye West, he lost his mother. I'm trying to think of who else off the top of my head. But that information is out there for you to look at. Each and every one. On the internet, they call it like a blood sacrifice or something. I don't know if that's true. I don't know if that's what really happened. But at the end of the day, they lose someone. And I know this because of some of the people that I really follow, like Mike Tyson. I'll never forget when Mike Tyson lost his daughter. He had a little 4-year-old daughter or 6-year-old daughter that died. And so each and every one of those people end up losing someone dear and close to them, but they achieve the highest levels of success in the world. And so when I sit and I look at the options of, okay, well, do I want to be a movie director? And do I want Siege of Lock and Ranch to be like the next biggest movie where it's in Hollywood on the theaters? And I sit there in my bed at night and I lay and I'm thinking about that decision. I'm like, well, is that worth something extremely bad happening to someone that I love? And it's not worth it. You know, it really is not, because it's just money. You know, it's money. And I love my life. I love the people surrounding me. So it's one of those things, man, you know.
Yeah, it gets to the point where, you know, I've looked at it in the radio industry as well, like what you got to do. Not really what you got to do, but what happens with it. And I've read a bunch of books about it. And it seems like, you know, I would almost rather have a small core audience of a few thousand people and just roll with that and do my creative thing than, you know, have to worry about all this business stuff. And it's the image thing that's always bothered me, because once you get into imaging, you know, taking photos and doing this stuff and trying to make yourself to where you have authority in this field or that field and buddying up with this person, it's all supremely fake. Meanwhile, there's people that are out there having real experiences that I'm trying to find out what's going on. That's why I'm here, is just pure curiosity, trying to figure this out. I mean, it wouldn't hurt. Everybody, I mean, let's be honest, famous would be cool, but I don't know if it's worth it in the long run, because it just seems like all of the music, all the movies, all the shows, even Netflix shows now, they all have this dark thing going on. Now, it doesn't matter where you turn. It's everywhere now.
No, and I think that's, I think a part of that has to do with the technology. I think another part of it has to do with what's really going on our planet and our world. And, you know, coming from my background, when you grow up in New Orleans, you really learn and master the ability to network, deal with people. Because in our community, you know, I mean my community, the black community, your capital is not money. It's political capital and people. So people are your form of money here for us. And what I mean by that, a perfect example is someone who's wealthy gets pulled over by a police officer, and, you know, they have the best lawyers and best attorneys and best everything, right? So they can take care of the problem. Someone who's not exactly extremely wealthy, they don't have those resources of money, but they have the people resources. So they know the judge, they know the police chief, they know actually the police officers. They can pick up the phone and say, hey, my son got pulled over by such and such. Can you pick up and give him a call and tell him, let him go? So there's two forms of capital. There's political capital, and there's which are people, and then there's actually money capital, you know, greenback capital. So, you know, for me, the networking and getting to know people is not a big thing and all. That doesn't bother me. What bothers me is, am I moving myself in a direction where I'm going to make some kind of choice that I don't really care to make? You know what I'm saying? So,
sure.
As far as the darkness that's everywhere at this point in time, I think people now actually feel it more than they've ever felt it before. And it has to do with the times, and it has to do with us going through a paradigm shift where, I mean, even if you look at the generation of people right now who are so soft, I mean, I've never seen anything like this in my life, where they're screaming and fussing and hollering. And it's like a soft generation of people. I mean, they just, you know, they're weak. So that's a huge paradigm shift for the world in itself, that we have these type of people who in the next 10, 15, 20 years will be running the world, who are just soft as a baby's bottom. So we got a lot going on. And that weakness, that softness allows all kinds of negative energy to move back and forth. And it's that same form of weakness is easily shaped and molded and manipulated, because now that's what evil seeks out. It seeks out a weak vessel. Seeks out something that it can manipulate and control. And you see it now. You see it everywhere. You really, really do see it. So that's the world we live in right now. I mean, I really do believe it is. We're surrounded by occult symbols and figures and things are upside down. They really, really are. It's actually scary how upside down things are at this point in time.
And in my experience, because I study the occult, that you can always, and we've talked about this before, you got to, if you do that kind of stuff, and I always say, if you do this stuff, you need to tread very carefully and very slowly. I've always believed that. There's people that don't agree with me on that, but I think it comes down to the individual too. Let's say, like you're talking about, you got a weak-minded or weak-spirited individual, and they end up in a bad place that's, I guess, say, full of bad spirits or bad juju, whatever you want to call it. They tend to get influenced more when they're not covering themselves with whatever they are. For instance, like, I would always pray to Jesus because it's my upbringing. It's my paradigm. I know I can go to Jesus for just about anything, and I think what it is a lot of times is people, they want to believe in something, but they don't know what to believe in. And so therefore they have no shield. And it's pretty crazy. And I wanted to ask you about that, about New Orleans, because New Orleans is a place that I've never been to, but I've always wanted to go. And it gets this image of dark magic. And I, just kind of want to know, is there any truth to that? Is it really a place full of dark magic and voodoo and hoodoo?
Well, it's a place where I would say it's a place where people dabble and mess around in it a lot. I mean, I was just, I'll give you an example. 2 weeks ago, I'm talking to a client of mine, and she's saying, she's like, James, I've been having a hell of a time the past month or so. I was like, well, why? She's like, the thing's just going wrong. All the plumbing at all my rental properties are breaking at the same time. Things are just going downhill. And she's like, I don't believe in hoodoo and voodoo, but I swear to you, I think somebody's burning a candle on me. And I was like, really? And she was like, yeah. I said, well, you need to go to church and you need to pray at night and make sure that you're covering yourself. Here we have so many hoodoo and voodoo and voodoo shops here that anybody can walk in and buy a reversal candle or buy anything that they need, a love spell or whatever it is that they want to use. So will I say that it's a dark place? No, I love this city. I love growing up here. I do think that it's Harry Potter world in some extent, to where everyone's trying to achieve their goals by using the spiritual realm. A friend of mine, a guy named Jonathan, who died, and I'll tell you this, I don't know if I've talked to you since this happened. F&F Botanical Shop was on Broad Street, Broad in Orleans. Been there for like 50 years, survived all kind of floods and storms. A good friend of mine was the manager, a guy named Jonathan. Outstanding guy, somebody that when I wanted to talk to someone about the spiritual realm, I could just go in there at 9 o'clock in the morning. It'd be him and I. We can hold these conversations.
That's cool.
But you'll be amazed at how things go and how that realm works. All within a 45-day period, everyone that worked in that shop died.
What?
Everyone.
How?
It started off with, they just died. So there was this lady named Miss Rose, beautiful little Creole lady, sweetheart, such a sweet lady. She loved to go to the casino and gamble. Miss Rose has an aneurysm, dies. I go back in, I'm talking to Jonathan. I didn't know Miss Rose had died. In fact, I was going to see Miss Rose because I wanted to give her a little voucher for Harris Casino, just to thank her for something. We had a conversation we had where she really counseled me on something. And I was like, hey, man, I was bringing this to Miss Rose. And he was like, you don't know? And I was like, no, what happened? He's like, she died last week. And I'm like, what? And so he was just distraught. And, he was hurt. He's like, well, we knew she had a partial aneurysm and she could die at any point in time, but she had been living with it for like 30 years. All of a sudden, she just died. So I'm like, all right, well, that's messed up. I go back a week or two later. His father-in-law, who originally owned the shop, died of cancer. Like, just the cancer hit him, died. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, okay. Then I go back, and next thing you know, the doors are closed. I'm like, what the hell? Why are the doors closed? I'm like, okay, well, maybe because all these deaths, he closed the doors. Well, I'm on Facebook, and I'm looking, and then there's an obituary posted for the guy, Jonathan. And he said he died in his sleep. And this guy was 48 years old, 49 years old. He wasn't old. He died in his sleep. So I say all that to say there's definitely things that happen in the spirit realm. Now, I don't know who they crossed. Well, actually, I kind of got an idea, but I don't want to talk about that. And I'll tell you that off air. But that the realm of the spirit world is real, and there's things that move, and you know this, that there are certain spells and incense and candles that actually move that world. And if a person has done enough to garnish enough power, then they can pretty much do anything they want. You know, they really can. But what I call New Orleans a dark place, no, I won't call it a dark place. What I will say, though, is it's absolutely a place where people are seeking power over this physical realm that we're in. And in that power that they seek, they're willing to go to whatever will give them power the easiest. So you and I believe in Jesus Christ. We pray to Jesus, and we say, Jesus, protect us and help us with blah, 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 right? And we understand that every one of our requests may not be answered. We may say, hey, I need a new car. Jesus, help me with my new car. And you may not get that new car this week or next week. Or you may not get it till next year. Right. Because there's other things that need to be in line to allow you to have that. But there's people who use magic and other forces and entities to get that car this week. And they want the car. They don't care what price they pay for the car. So it's a place where that happens. So if you run across the wrong person, in the wrong way, then it can get dark. But if you're here and you're hanging out, the people are lovely and kind and endearing, and that's why so many people come here. But there is a magical sense to this city where people come here and they lose themselves and they have fun and they really enjoy themselves. But as far as the underbelly of the city, if you cross the wrong person, you'll have a major problem. Major problem like nothing you've ever seen before. Mm-hmm. But it's not like you just decide to come in for the weekend and that's what's going to happen to you. Now, if you go looking for that, then I can see you getting something bad. If you go looking for something bad, you'll definitely find it.
You know, there's something that I talk about a lot is psychic protection and things of that nature. And when I started studying magic and stuff, I studied it out of, sheer curiosity. And then when I realized that there was this other realm and this other side, I really got into it. And nowadays, I'm even studying what they call chaos magic, which is, it's a whole another belief system. They really don't have a belief system. It's kind of like they just use things as mythos, really, or maybe folk magic. So they use things in myth form. So what I mean is like, they'll even use Christian magic. They'll use the saints or Jesus or whatever works for whatever they're trying to do. So if they're trying to do protection or they're trying to do anything good, they'll use Jesus or some saints. If they're trying to get money or things like that, 9 times out of 10, they'll never call upon an angel or Jesus or anything like that. They'll go to either a demon or a spirit king or a daemon, however you want to look at it, or Lucifer himself. But they don't really look at Lucifer like that. And look, I'll be honest with you, Dark. From what I've studied with them, it makes me, I can see their point, because they look at things like quantum physics, more of a scientific point of view and stuff. However, what did startle me is that there were people that were asking questions like, can I do this sigil magic for malefic reasons? In other words, to kill somebody. And, and I started realizing that, and you could even tell these advanced magicians that were teaching this stuff, they'd kind of roll their eyes and they didn't really want to answer the question, but they had to. And you could do that. And I'm thinking, what? So there are people out there. They're not out there just to make bad things happen for you. They're doing spells and curses and things like that for you to die. You piss them off and they will kill you. That's what they want to do. And I have to believe at some point they do succeed sometimes. Scary,
I believe all that's 100% possible. The thing about doing what I do, and I'll be 100% transparent and honest with you guys on this. Mm-hmm. So anybody who's seen how I create content, they'll notice there's these huge freaking gaps in between stuff, like huge. Sometimes it's 3-4 months gaps in between before I sit back down and actually, put the information that I've been told into a format where people can digest it and swallow it. That's because in those time periods, I have so many conversations with people, and it's so much different information coming at me that sometimes I just have to take a break from the paranormal. Like right now, I'm coming off a break of the paranormal that's been like a 4-month break, maybe 5 months almost, to where I burnt my phone number. Nobody could call me. And partially that was because I started talking to a gentleman he's like, hey, man, I want you to tell my story. But he was inducted into witchcraft. And he's told me the story about the things that he was forced to do. He's out of Austin. And the things that he was forced to do as a young man, and the rituals he went through. And he went on to be an attorney, and how his father made him defend murderers and pedophiles, people that he knew were guilty, that had raped children, and he had to defend them. And if he didn't defend them, then his family was going to be in danger. And to a certain extent, not to a certain extent, to a 100% extent, when you talk to people like that and you touch evil, you either have two ways to go. You can kind of embrace that and say, okay, well, yeah, I'm going to do this and get excited about it. Or you can kind of turn your back on it and be like, look, I don't want nothing to do with that. You know what I'm saying? So, and that kind of supports the point of what you're saying. When it comes to people who practice this dark magic, that's a lifestyle for those people.
Right.
And when you start getting into that, it's not a practice, it's a lifestyle. I'm very familiar with chaos magic because I've talked to people who practice it and perform it. But it's a lifestyle for those people. And that's the lifestyle that they choose. And I've spoken to a number of people who perform it. And I think the thing that helps me is that, again, it's that New Orleans boy where I respect everybody. Here we call it respecting people's mind, which means that everyone is given the respect that they deserve until they disrespect you.
Right.
And then that's when we have a problem. So I think the way I was raised kind of helps me with dealing with various different people. But then at some point in time, I draw the line. Listen, bro, this is not for me.
Mm-hmm.
And I hope you and I don't have a problem. But if we do, we'll deal with it. But
that's why I like you, man. You're to the point and direct, and you're a professional. You care about. There's a lot of things I like about you, but I don't really want to go into that. I mean, we've done sigil magic on this show, and I honestly don't think there's anything wrong. I used to think there is, but I don't think there's wrong with people asking the spirits for help. Granted, okay, to have better things in their life and their family, but just like this world where you could be kind to somebody or you could hurt somebody, you have to acknowledge at some point that if the spirit world is real, and we know it is, and that's what we call it because that's the word we use for it, then there are good things you do and bad things you do in there. And this is why they kept this stuff secret, and it's not so much secret now, which really scares me, but they kept it secret for the right kind of people. And to be honest with you, some of the best magicians I've ever met, they might have used some protection magic here and there, but they're not really out to just hurt people. And yet I see this time and time again. Well, you crossed me, or you cut me off on the road, or something like that. So they want to do some type of crazy magic on you. And so this is why I tell everybody, hey, if you believe in any type of spiritual thing, it's not going to hurt every day to say some type of protection. And I would say this too, and you can comment on this, even if let's say you grew up Christian and you became a mystic, or you're more of a mystic now than you were. If you feel like you need protection, go to that paradigm, go to your upbringing. That's what my upbringing was. And even if for bad or good reasons, I will tell you this, that it works. I mean, alien abductions, Dark, people talk about that all the time when they have sleep paralysis or they feel like they're being abducted. Even people that don't believe in Christ, so to speak, that's the name they shout out for some reason, and it tends to work. You got to think there's something to that.
Well, no, there's absolutely something to it. I mean, the simple fact of the matter is that when you talk about Jesus Christ, every entity out there actually acknowledges Christ and obeys and has fear of the Lord. The craziest thing about people's paranormal experiences and people who dabble in some of this stuff is they get firsthand confirmation that Jesus Christ is real and that his power is real. Some people get firsthand confirmation and they tend to go the other way anyway. They make their mind up to do whatever they're going to do, and that's something that's between them and God, and they have to deal with the consequences of that. But one of the things that has been beautiful, I mean amazingly beautiful about being in this realm, in this field for me, has been the fact of all the confirmation that I've gotten since I started doing this. I mean, because I went from originally coming out and telling the stories and telling people stories to being under serious, oh my goodness, attacks to where I couldn't sleep, to where things were crawling in the bed with me, to where there were shadows in my house, to where things were talking to my kids at night and running them out of the bed. And what it only did for me was bring me closer to God, and that's all it did. Mm-hmm. And over time, I've learned, and this is me speaking from my experience, that it's been great that God allowed me to experience these things. At first, I was kind of like, well, why am I going through this? And I prayed on it, and I prayed on it, and I prayed on it. And then finally, I'm riding in a car one day. And what I found to be beautiful about how God communicates with me is it's so random that it can't be anything but God. So I'm riding in the car. My cell phone is in the cup holder. I hit a bump, and I'm playing YouTube, and the video changes. And I'm just driving in that little daze. You know how you're driving, you're not really paying attention, but you're paying attention. Yeah. And then on comes this video, and this guy talking about God, and he says, and keep in mind, I was listening to like some blues music when I was driving and before it switched. And so it goes to this video, and it says, God lets you experience certain things for a reason. He wants you to experience something negative, but it's just that experience. You don't have to be afraid of it. It's just that experience. And I was like, well, there go the answer to my question. And I was like, okay, cool. So I'm thankful for the experiences of knowing without a doubt that calling on Jesus Christ's name stops things in its track. You know what I'm saying? And also knowing that these attacks that happen, like, because I've had financial attacks where stuff on my car would just break, like straight up. Then I get it fixed, something else will break. To the point to where 4 things break in a row, you're like, okay, this is not normal. Right. You know what I'm saying? Something trying to stop me. But even those things, that it got to the point now where I'm kind of calm in that storm, where it's like, oh, okay, I'll pray on it and I'm going to keep it moving. You know what I'm saying? I'm not going to sit here and stress out and get gray hair. So, I mean, some people have to take different roads and paths to get to where they belong in life. And some people have been here before, and those people need to make the right decision. So they're going to encounter what they need to encounter, and they're going to experience what they need to experience to make those decisions and have that opportunity to make that decision. But it's up to each one of us to what decision we're going to make. The only thing that bothers me about the magic as a whole is when you start looking at groups of people, there's always a 10% or 1% of people who have malicious intent. Yep. When you start dealing in that spiritual realm, that 1% with the right amount of power can do so much damage. It can do so much damage that it's ridiculous. So although the average practitioner running around is, they're trying to get some money, they're trying to get a girlfriend, they're trying to get their life in order, and they're tapping into that spiritual realm, that's not the person that's the threat. It's that other person that's that 1%. It's that person who takes that rap album or that rock album and summons spirits and tells the spirits to go into that album and then send that album out to the public. And next thing you know, people hooked on drugs. People are being rebellious. That's the problem to me. Right.
Can I ask you a question about this though? The entities like Dogman, the ones that they seem evil to me through the stories, but also they also seem like they have their own nature. For example, I mean, a lion is like a lion or a tiger or whatever. They're going to kill something when they get hungry, and if you piss them off, they're going to hurt you. But then there are stories that I've listened to on your website about it looked like a magician had bound something, and then somebody accidentally unbound it. You know what I mean? And I wonder if there is a correlation to these types of things. In other words, if somebody could use dark magic or dabble with this stuff, then next thing you know, Dogman's in their yard. You see what I mean? That's kind of not what I'm trying to say, but I'm trying to find the connection.
Well, I can answer that. There's, after hearing probably about 350 different Dogman encounters, some believable, some not so believable, some to be matter of fact true. What I've discovered is that there are two types of encounters that people have. One of them is an encounter with a creature, flesh and blood, no different than a dog in your backyard type flesh and blood, that's very vicious and ferocious and will hurt and harm you. Absolutely. Hands down, no doubt about it. Like, it's to the point now when people talk to me about it, I understand it so much that it's like I don't even want to hear about it anymore, right? But then there's the other Dogman encounters, which are purely 100% demonic, period. There's no way around it, because there's no way a Dogman manifests inside your bedroom, inside your house, behind locked doors. But there's people who've called me with encounters where they've been inside their house. There have been people who have called me with encounters where they've been in their bedroom. There have been people who call me with encounters where they come out of the bathroom and this entity, this thing, is in their living room. So there's two types of encounters that people have. And that's why you see that spiritual aspect to it, in which you hear about, and it kind of blends in and it kind of muddies the water when it comes to Dogman. And that's because we haven't kind of compartmentalized it and separated it. We just say everything is Dogman, right? And it's kind of, because the topic is so popular and the topic is something that everybody's interested in, nobody really takes time to break it down the way it should be broken down. So when Linda Godfrey started talking about the Michigan Dogman on the road, she was probably talking about an actual physical dog entity, like the dog in your backyard. But when some of these other people are talking about the things that are happening and manifesting, where they see them on the side of the road for a split second, then it's not there, or they hear something growling in their bedroom at night and they look up and it's a huge, gigantic werewolf-looking thing, but when they pray, it goes away immediately. You're talking about a more spiritual aspect, which I believe is a demonic manifestation of something, portraying that. So, unfortunately, we haven't gotten to the point to where we really differentiate it. I don't think people care to differentiate it because they only want the views and they only want the money associated with it. But that's where that comes from. There's definitely two types of encounters that people are having, and that's why we have that problem.
Right. Well, listen, I know I don't want to keep you too much longer. This is kind of a last minute thing for you coming on the show, and I appreciate you coming by and talking to us. Is there anything that
I'm just getting warmed up, bro? We can keep going. I'm up
cool,
now, bro.
Because we got to take a break. I just didn't want to go into the break and then come back and be like, well, he's gone, you know? So, yeah, we'll take a little quick break and we'll come back with a little more from Dark Waters, guys. It's good stuff here. Stick around. We'll be right back after these messages.
To Lighting the Void Radio.
The truth is out there.
There's something out here.
And so are we. KTOK Digital Broadcasting, The Fringe FM.
Do you ever wonder why there's so much show in politics? Do you ever wonder why America's not getting fixed? Ever wonder why our media is not reporting the news? They report only their biased opinion. Are you tired of feeling like a controlled rat? Do you wonder what's next? If you're looking for answers, join me, Ronnie McMullen, for my new show, Deep Waters Radio. That's Deep Waters Radio. Monday nights, 9 p.m. Pacific, right here on The Fringe FM.
Hi, this is Aaron Hunter, host of Real Paranormal Activity, the podcast where we tell real paranormal experiences of people from around the world. And we also conduct interviews with authors, investigators, psychics, and mediums. Real people, real stories, real fear. Thursdays at 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern on The Fringe FM. See you then.
Hi, guys. Matt Ray with America's First News. And if you're like me, you're probably still looking for that special Christmas gift for your wife or girlfriend. Treat her to the very best this year. The world's softest pajamas from Pajamagram. Because they are the world's softest pajamas, they're lighter than a cloud, softer than a bunny. They're like cashmere, only better, and you'll love the way they look. She'll love the way they feel. The softness, the warmth, the comfort. And if you're like me, you can't stand wrapping presents. It's tough to do. Well, get this. Pajamagram includes free gift packaging. All you have to do is make the order, and delivery is guaranteed by Christmas. Plus, they're backed by a 100% lifetime guarantee. You risk nothing but the look on her face, guys, when she opens the Pajamagram. So go to pajamagram.com right now. That's pajamagram.com. Tell them Matt Ray sent you. That's pajamagram.com. Tell them Matt Ray sent you.
So, you love talk radio? Then you'll love TalkStreamLive.com. TalkStream Live is always on, 24/7, with the best streaming talk shows. Find your favorite talkers and discover some new ones. It's free, readily available online or on mobile with any smartphone or tablet. Finding your favorite talk shows all in one place has gotten a whole lot easier. Just go to TalkStreamLive.com. Be sure to download the free apps from Google Play or the iTunes App Store.
When I'm done running with the wolves after hunting down a half-ton bison, I look forward to a mind-teetering escapade evening on The Fringe FM.
This is Cortana from Shift Happens, telling you to pour a glass and park your ass, because you're listening to KTLK, The Fringe FM. Shifthead.
Folks, this is very important information. What's to be said about CBD? AncientLifeOil.com. Our CBD is made from hemp and has 0.003 THC, which means this wonderful product won't get you high, no matter what amount you take. What does CBD do for the body? My hands are tied. But you can Google CBD benefits and be astounded. When you're finished reading, you'll want to log on to AncientLifeOil.com. That's AncientLifeOil.com. and purchase. Life is good when you feel good. People are tired of pain. People are asking for non-GMO organic products to help them with you fill in the blank. Legal in 49 states, and again, our CBD is made from hemp. Ancient Life Oil is about helping people one by one by one. If you wonder how good the product is, the CEO takes it every day without miss. AncientLifeOil.com. That's AncientLifeOil.com. Have a great day.
Alex. I was thinking about the cops because I was looking at photos and stuff online. It seems like more and more I'm seeing police with tattoos, and I'm sorry. You can't tell the gangbangers from the cops now. I mean, what if they had them on their face? Now, that would be crazy, because that's where it really originates from. A lot of people don't know that. I know it's a big thing now on like rappers, and everybody's doing it. Gang members have them. Everybody's kind of doing it now. Musicians and tattoos on their face, crosses, crucifix, and stuff like that. Crucifixes, that's what's really funny to me, because it's all satanic. All of it. All of it. All of it. Tattoos are straight from hell. Hell sent. Straight from hell. Straight from the bowels of hell. All tattoos. All tattoos, period. End of story. Oh, you didn't know that? Because they were trying to represent the actual demon gods that they worshipped. Straight from hell. Pure evil. Straight from the bowels of hell, from Satan himself.
KTOK Digital Broadcasting, The Fringe FM.
Howdy, this is Catalina, and you're listening to Lighting the Void with Joe Roop.
Welcome back to Lighting the Void. It is New Year's Day still for some, but it is actually January the 2nd now for of us that are on the East Coast and Central Time. I'm Joe Roop, and this is Lighting the Void. We're live on the Fringe FM, and we're here with Dark Waters, show host, narrator, now all around, man, you're all kinds of things now. I used to just say, well, you're a narrator, but now you're a show host, a network owner, and you got your hands in all kinds of stuff, man. I think it's cool, and I look forward to more of your work. But before the break, we were talking about how the occult and magic relates to bad things that happen, also to cryptids, because I saw a question in the chat room like Dogman with a question mark. So believe it or not, there's still people out there that hadn't heard of Dogman. And not too long ago, I hadn't heard of it either. But the thing about it is we were talking about kind of curses and bad things, talking about how important prayer was. Here's the thing that I want people to realize, and maybe you can comment on this too, Dark, is I had somebody, when I really realized that the attacks were real, when I started stressing prayer and psychic protection and things like that, is when someone attacked my pet. And I didn't believe in that. I read something about these attacks where they could attack your pet because for some reason, if you had a child, it was kind of a low magic thing. They really couldn't go after that, but they could definitely hurt your pet. And about that time, I had a situation to where I knew somebody was attacking me, and I don't really want to talk about it because people may know this person. And they almost killed my cat, man. And I got angry. And I'll admit to you, I fired back with something I probably shouldn't have fired back with, and it ended up hurting that person really bad. So I'm telling you guys this from my own experience, that it's best not to even do it. You know, if you're going to get into cursing and stuff like that, it's just don't even mess with it. Just do the protection or prayer. People don't really realize how powerful prayer is, do they? I don't think they do.
No. People don't realize how powerful prayer is. And people don't, number one, people don't realize how powerful curses are. And they don't understand the ramifications and repercussions of curses. For example, there's a young lady who I really, really love, like a sister, who's been a supporter of Dark Waters channel since the beginning. I remember her telling me a story about her grandmother and how her grandmother, who's part Dominican and part black, had it out with another woman who was practiced Santeria, and how that woman sent something to their house, which was probably designed to kill her grandmother. But because her grandmother had the cat, it actually killed the cat. It was like 3 knocks on the door. She opened the door. The grandmother said, "Don't open the door," but she opened the door, and this swirling wind came into the house and went and hit her cat and killed the cat dead right there, right in front of them. And so you're talking about very powerful forces. And the thing is, I mean, when you decide to try and attack someone or curse someone or hex someone, you never know what that person is capable of, or what that person has with them, or what kind of entity that person has with them, or what kind of protection that person has. So if one of the things that Jonathan, a guy who died, told me, he would always say, he was like, "James, you know, a lot of people have people who put hexes and curses on them." He's like, "It's very, very hard to break a hex or a curse, but it's very, very easy to send it back to them."
Yeah.
He was like, so, you know, don't worry about if somebody trying to do you something. He was like, if you do your prayers, he's like, you're Christian. He's like, you believe in Jesus? I was like, yeah. He's like, man, open your book of the Psalms. He said, read your Psalms daily. And he went through this, he taught me this routine that monks would do with the Psalms, where they would read 6 Psalms per day. Pretty much throughout the month, they would read the whole book of Psalms, but they would do it every month. And he was like, just reading those 6 Psalms per day out loud, or even quietly and praying. He was like, anything anybody sends at you. And he said, you know, it's gonna hurt really, really bad when it goes back to them. He's like, it won't do you anything. And so people need to understand that not only does prayer work, but, you know, the word of God works. And that's the thing that really confuses me, Joe. Like, people who are into that spiritual realm, people who practice that, they know this. They absolutely know it. So they're making a conscious decision to choose to do something differently. You know what I'm saying? Just like you were saying, you know, hey, you know, when I need to pray, I pray to Jesus because it works. Well, you know it works.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So what happens is you're making a decision. If that power works in that way, then everything else you need or want or desire, you can have through God and through Jesus. Some people just choose to go a different route. And I reiterate that and I stress that over and over again because it is a conscious decision that people are making. And when you go back and read through the Bible, you can see the results of those conscious decisions and what happened to people who made that same choice and that same decision. So it's there. It's all written out for you to read and study and see. So I would just say be careful to people who decide they're going to dibble and dabble in that and mess with that, because spiritual consequences and repercussions, I don't believe they stop when you die. I don't think that, I think that follows you when you leave the physical realm. When your soul leaves the physical realm, it follows you. And that's one of the things that gentleman was sharing with me that was so frightening when he started talking about the human soul and the way that the human soul can be tortured and tormented by design. It blew my mind. And these are things that, if you turn on a YouTube video, you'll hear somebody talking about, they could torture the human soul by splitting people's personalities and doing this. And when they split the personalities, the demon can take control. But it's one thing to hear it on YouTube. It's another thing for a person to tell you how it's done. And then for a person to tell you, hey man, and I'm telling you this because this information needs to be shared. And then for you to sit there and say, okay, and pray and say, God, this is really going to put me under the gun when I drop this, because I'm going to drop some serious stuff. Should I do it? Should I not do it? And to make that decision. And for me personally, like people say, Dark Waters is a horror narrator. The truth of the matter is I'm more of like an investigative reporter who tells the story of what actually happened. And that's why it takes so long for me to create content, because I'm really getting to the bottom of what happened and taking all this information and then holding these conversations with people that normally I wouldn't talk to. I mean, I really wouldn't hold that conversation. Like somebody walked up on the street, hey man, I was born into witchcraft and my family's, roots in witchcraft go back to Europe, and we couldn't trace our family. It's gone back so far that we can't even trace it. I'd be like, get the hell out of my face. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, what are we talking about here? So it's one of those things to where it's six in one hand, half a dozen in the other when you start looking at it,
I kind of I used to be that way, and I probably should be, but my curious nature, and I'm gonna be honest with you, is a little bit dangerous. I mean, some people know that about me, and I've tend to accept all kinds of different paradigms now, but the realities I've learned that you and I discuss are still true. The fundamentals are still true. For instance, Cynthia's asking in the chat room, people can actually pray to Jesus without accepting him as your savior? Absolutely. Absolutely. If you study, and I'm not telling you to do this, but if you've studied any chaos magic, not only do they use Jesus' name, they use other names that he was called, not just Jesus. They'll invoke every name anybody's ever called him, and it works for them. But if you read the verses of the Bible, he tells you, that a lot of people do a lot of things in his name, but they don't really know him. There's a difference. But that's just what the Bible says. So if you accept him as your savior, that's your religion. That's your master. That's who you're supposed to obey. He talks about that. Now, you're not doing what I say, but I don't want to get into the whole preaching stuff. But yeah, some people do use Jesus. And another thing they use is saints, which I found pretty fascinating, Dark, because I never grew up Catholic or anything or even knew about the saints. And the saints go way back. I mean, back further before the Roman Catholics actually started getting together and doing their thing. There were saints that fought demons and all kinds of stuff, and magicians used their names too, and it works. But when they really want something or they really need protection, it seems like they always use Jesus. That's what they always use.
Yeah, and I guess to answer the question in the chat, I pondered that question as well, because I've talked to people, and it's kind of like, okay, well, and this is personal to me, so I'm be honest with you guys that are listening. I said in my prayers one time, I said, well, God, I said, how can someone call upon your name and seek your protection, but they don't believe me and they don't accept you as their Lord and Savior? Like, Jesus Christ is my Lord and Savior. Like, I believe he died and was resurrected, died on the cross and was resurrected. That's what I believe. And that's what I live my life by. And I said, well, God, how can someone use you in that manner without actually believing in you? And what came back to me after a long time of prayer was, God is always seeking for people to come to him. And if he only took, people who just who just believe, then there would be nobody else. Everyone has to have that opportunity. So everyone's given that opportunity. Everyone's given that experience. Now, what they do is up to them. But they're given that experience. So that person who has that experience where they have that demonic encounter, but they don't believe in Jesus, or they were practicing something and he had to turn to Jesus, they know it works. Now, they know for a fact that he's there. They know for a fact that he's willing to help. But if they choose to go in the other direction, and that's where the free will comes in, and that's the choice that they're making. And again, we know there's consequences for it, but that's their choice. So
and
I believe that
sense,
people
right?
can.
From somebody that has that much love, like, okay, you know, if he has as much love as he says he does, when people come to him that haven't accepted him and ask for his help, he can give you, you know, he's giving you that experience. Hey, when you ask for my help, I'm here. What does that tell you? Right?
No, I don't. No,
he's there. It's real.
No, he's there. It's definitely real. Now, what the cost of that is, to continually to do that, and then continually reject them, and what the cost is, that's all laid out in the Bible as well. So, I just think that. But again, sometimes one of the things I've learned is that when we talk about people who practice different magical traditions, and these are very, very highly intelligent people. I think sometimes people underestimate the intelligence because it's like, oh, this person's a witch, and they kind of look down upon it like, oh, that person must not be super smart. No, these are not dumb individuals whatsoever. These are people who are making a choice. So they make their choice, and then they live by those choices. Yeah, and that's really what it boils down to. So these aren't dumb people. These are very intelligent people, because if you ever look at any of those rituals and any of those spells and any of that stuff, man, and the average person who's practicing that stuff, the knowledge of herbs and medicine and everything that they learn, I mean, it's actually damn near like having a college degree for someone who actually really, really does that stuff. So they know what they're doing, and they make that choice. And to address the saints, you know, in the Catholic religion, people pray to saints, and it definitely works. And in hoodoo and voodoo, people use saints all the time. St. George, the Archangel Michael was called Saint Michael. St. Jude, St. Thomas, Ray Solomon, which is King Solomon. All kinds of different saints are used. I don't care to debate the merits of that, you know, whether it's right or wrong. That's just not my position to debate that. But what I will tell you is that people use it, and they do it, and it works for those people. You know, when I was working with Jonathan and talking to him, and we were talking about different things, and he was like, well, man, you know, you need to use, you know, St. Jude. This is when my father had cancer. My father had prostate cancer, very, very aggressive form of prostate cancer. And I was just talking to him. He's like, well, you know, you need to use St. Jude, because St. Jude is known for healing people and da-da-da-da-da. And I said, well, I don't know about all that. And he was like, well, why? I was like, that just don't sit right with me to do that. I'll pray the way I've normally been praying. And he was like, well, all right, well, that's cool. He was like, but I just wanted to let you know that that's something that you could use. So at the end of the day, free will gives us an opportunity to make our own decisions. It gives us opportunity. We live in a world where we have access to more information than people have ever had at a faster speed. Everyone's walking around as a cyborg right now with a supercomputer in their hand. So you have ample opportunity to research and understand what you're using, what you're doing, and make a decision, and then know the consequences of that decision. So that's not something that I particularly care to do, but there are definitely people who do it.
Yeah, and you're not playing about how intelligent they are. And the funny thing is about that is it seems like the more dark you get with things, the higher intelligence you run into. Isn't that weird? For instance,
no, it's not weird at all.
I can give some examples. Like, I guess his name's Anton LaVey, Aleister Crowley, some people that are teaching magic now are super intelligent. I ran across a text that I won't even say anymore that talked about human sacrifice, and it was probably one of the most intelligent books I've ever read in my life, and that's what freaked me out. Right. So, and this paradigm that I'm trying to understand is, and you look at the backstories, when people wanted more knowledge, they got more sorrow. It was almost inevitable. The more knowledge they seeked, especially stuff when it came to mysteries, they got more sorrow, except for Solomon, and his stories kind of didn't end very well for him because, like you say, it ended because of the choices he made, not because of what God gave him, you know?
It ended because he decided he wanted to be with Bathsheba and he wanted to worship Baal. So it's at the end of the day. So, for example, and this is just from my studies and my and what I've seen. So when you start looking at the sigil signs, a lot of the stuff that was originally given to man, like Solomon himself, was actually given to him by God to use. And when you go into the building of King Solomon's temple, you go into masonry, you go into Freemasonry, you go into everything, because Freemasonry is based on the building of King Solomon's temple, Boaz and Jacob Bennett. I don't want to go too deep, but the whole point of the matter was there was something given to him by God to help him accomplish God's goals, right? What you see over time is that you see man taking those things and they corrupt them and they abuse them, which is, they're all gifts from God, but they're corrupted and they're abused. And that's because the true nature of who we are as people. We seek power and we seek the easy road. We seek to go down the wide road instead of taking the narrow road. And part of going down the narrow road is we want what we want now. We want, we want the beautiful woman, we want the car, we want the money, we want the fame, we want the attention, we want the faux love that people give us. So those spiritual truths, a lot of that spiritual knowledge was taken. Some of it was hidden, some of it was corrupted. And so now you start to see it manifest in ways in which hurt and harm man right now. And when you say that the darker people get, the more intelligent they are, well, it takes a very intelligent person to actually sit down and go through all that information and understand it. Yeah. And on top of that, and the darker they get, the more assistance they get as well. Because you can't believe in God and not believe in the devil. You know what I'm saying? You can't believe in the devil and you can't believe in angels and not believe that there are not demons. So at the end of the day, they get assistance as well. And anybody who's ever read anything about Aleister Crowley knows that dude was off the chain. Like he performed every form of depravity known to man, and he was happy about it. You know what I'm saying?
He went into the depths for sure. Yeah, and
he went to the deepest, darkest corners he can go to the point to where his property right now, nobody will go to his property because it's so demonically manifested that nobody's willing to go there. It's just sitting there, abandoned. So, at the end of the day, yeah, it takes a very highly intelligent person to even go there. But the darker they get, the more assistance they get. And again, that I've spoken to people who've done some very, very dark things. Some people who I just clearly said, listen, man, don't call me ever again.
Right. Yeah, I don't want nothing to do with it.
I don't want nothing to do with you because you clearly have some demonic assistance. There was one guy that called me, and he literally started telling me my whole life.
Oof.
This dude told me, I almost cursed. This dude told me stuff that nobody knew. And at first I thought he was a psychic, right? And it was like, okay, this guy's a psychic. Then after the third conversation, I was like, nah, you got a little bit more assistance than the average psychic that I've spoken to. The average psychic would be like, oh, you're going through a rough time with this and you had this. This dude was like, nah, when you were 9 years old, you were jumping a fence, your shirt got caught on a fence, and you got stabbed in the side with the metal part of the fence. You had to go get a tetanus shot when you were 15 years old. And he just went through, you got chased by a black dog named Blackie, like stuff that nobody knew. And I was like, yeah, bro, listen, whoever you rolling with, whatever you got, listen, bro, don't call me no more. I said, there's really nothing for us to talk about. And during those conversations, I think his goal was to kind of show me the power of whatever his demonic entity was. Because he would say little small things in a conversation like, this is stuff that Jesus won't do for you. And I would just laugh. And I'd be like, oh, okay, I hear what you're saying. But and I would tell him, like, man, you got stuff that I don't really care to have. I don't need to know everybody's personal business. What do I need to know my next door neighbor's personal business for? If I want to know, I'll ask them. I don't need a demon to tell me that. So again, and when I started this, Joe, I never thought that. I never even imagined that it would get to this point. Because if you go back and you listen to my earlier interviews, I would shy away from talking about religion and about Jesus and all, because I was like, I don't want to offend people and da 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 da. But the more dark things started coming towards me, the more I said, okay, well, if you're gonna punch me like this, I'm gonna punch you back. Hit me, I'm gonna hit you back. So, and I think that I've tried, to be honest with you, I've tried to really, really back off of all this. I went through a time period where I was like, this is just too intense. And I prayed, I said, well, God, why you even got me doing this? This is too intense. You got people calling me that's literally got demons in them. There's shadows in my house. There's, crazy stuff happening. My stomach just, and I think I've told you that story about when I was in Dallas, when that entity stuck his finger down my nose. And after that, I started getting acid reflux. I was like, this is crazy. I was like, I don't think I want to do this anymore. Like, I'm pretty much done with it. Even though it's easy to do, even though this field is a field that's wide open for people who have good ideas and good business acumen to really, make a difference. I was like, I don't know if I want to do this. And every time it's gotten to that point, I'm like, well, God, I'm going to pray on it. If you want me to do it, then, send me a sign. Like the last time I had that conversation with God, 2 days later, I get a text message from Dave Schrader. He's like, hey, Jay, are you going to be in town on, January 5th, 6th, and 7th? I'm like, yeah, I'm going to be in town. And he's like, well, I want you to come speak at a panel with me for Wizard Con. And I was like, well, okay. I was like, is that like Comic Con, right? He's like, yeah, but it's bigger. I was like, well, all right, I'll go. So every time I turn to walk away, it's like, nah, you can't go. I want you to do this. So I'm just kind of rolling with it and, seeing it through. But there have definitely been times, based on the conversations I've had with people and based on the manifestations, that I'm like, ooh, this is way, way too much,
Yeah, it gets a little intense for sure. And I think it's just like, I'm not like science, for example. And we're going to have a guy on tomorrow night from the Skeptical podcast who I really like, because science can only explain so much. And then the spiritual books that we were given, especially the basic religious books, are filled with contradictions and can only explain so much. So what do we have to base our truth off of? Well, the only thing we have to base our truth off of is our experience, right? So, I mean, what does our experience tell us? Well, as you and I have discussed, our experience tells us that certain things lead to other things, and that when I use this name, it seems to work all the time. So that, to me, that equals something, if that makes any sense. So I look at things in formula view, but the thing that I worry about is these were in the biblical text. These were called heavenly secrets, astrology, roots and weapon making and even makeup. And they were called heavenly secrets, things that we weren't supposed to know or be messing with. And according to those texts, it doesn't necessarily say, well, we learn those secrets later. Well, maybe, but while we're in this form, doing this thing, whatever this earthly thing is, that God or that book didn't want us messing with it. And now we got places like CERN that are smashing atoms together. And I used to laugh at all these stories, Dark, when people would say, yeah, demons, dogman, this and that. But the more I look into this, the more I think, man, we could be opening up doorways that we don't even know about. And not just using magic, just some of the stuff that's going on in science even scares me a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to jump down a rabbit hole, if you really, really want to jump down a rabbit hole, think about it like this. Two things that I've learned. Number one, because I've studied the Bible extensively, and then I've studied the books that were taken out of the Bible extensively. When you go through those books, even if you go to the book of Adam and Eve, you go through pretty much any book, the book of Enoch, one of the things that resounds true is that God loves man and that God chose us and he loves us, period. You look at the book of Adam and Eve, they committed suicide hundreds of times. God brought them back from the dead. Lucifer tried to deceive them over and over and over again. They were always protected by God in one way, shape, or form when they were kicked out of the garden. Even though they had committed sin and they were kicked out of the garden, they still had his protection. Number two, when you look at what's going on around us right now, as we speak, as we live, when you look at vaccines poisoning and killing people, water being poisoned to kill people, wars going on, everything that you see happening, there's clearly some higher power, darker force that's at work through man, select individuals, and through other forms that's looking to destroy the world as we know it. I mean, there's no reason to create a CERN to collide particles to open black holes and to open portals. There's absolutely no reason to do that. Then when you look at the antediluvian age, the age before the flood, which people call the golden age, where there was technology similar to ours, which is we have now, and you see that world was destroyed by the flood, which the flood story is something that's across all religions. We know that world was destroyed because of what man was doing and what they were participating in based on the knowledge that they received from fallen angels. Some people call fallen angels aliens. Some people call it. Doesn't matter to me what you call them. It doesn't matter to me how you quantify them. I don't really care how you see it. But it's clear that there was an all-for-all presence that came here and taught man different things, and then that knowledge was taken and used in a negative way. And I think what we're doing now is repeating that again. Without a doubt, we're repeating as humanity, we're repeating what was done prior and in the past. And I think we're going to have the same catastrophic end result. If you look around right now, from the thing about gender and people being gender neutral, the attack on marriage, the attack on families, everything that is godly and that was in order is being shaken and destroyed when you look around and you see it. Man is not man anymore. You know what I'm saying? Man can be, I'm not a man. I'm a binary neutral person. Okay, bro, you have a penis. You know what I'm saying? Like that's right. What makes you a man. Yeah. Right. So you see this, but it's intelligent how it's being done. And you can see where it's by design. And the only place that it can lead to is destruction. I mean, the only place it can lead to is absolute destruction. And when you look at it, when I say you can tell it's by design, you can go back when I was 9, 10 years old. People still would be out in the woods. I remember my dad saying, "Hey, man, we're going to go out hunting." And our dad don't want to go hunt. Well, he went to go hunt. We would do fishing. You see now people being moved into these cities. You see artificial intelligence coming. You see in China, the actual mark of the beast system is already in place where if you don't agree with the communist Chinese government, then you can't get on a plane and fly. You can't take a train. So what you see unfolding, whether people believe it or not, is exactly what was said in the Bible is unfolding right in front of you. The average person is distracted, though. You know, the Super Bowl is coming up. LeBron James is shooting a basketball, so they don't pay attention to it, but it's unfolding right in front of you. I mean, it's literally unfolding right in front of you. So is it scary? Absolutely, it's scary.
You ain't joking. I got on so before every day I try to look up subjects to talk about, and I'll use things like Google Trends and Twitter Trends, even YouTube Trends. And when I look on there, it's still football, Kim Kardashian, Taylor Swift, football. And I'm like, what, there's all this other crazy stuff going on. I mean, NASA just got a signal from billions of miles away for the first time ever. You think that would be more important? So I am a little bit concerned about the things that we're focused on, although I feel kind of powerless at the same time because I know that there's no getting through to some people. You know what I mean? So what do you do? At that point, you just only get through to the people that are curious, I guess.
No, I mean, you get through to who you can get through to. And, a friend of mine and I had this conversation a week ago, and he was so adamant because he's, I don't know where he is in his life, but he was like, I don't understand why God would let people go through this and do this. And I was trying to explain to him, each and every person has an opportunity to seek out the information that's necessary to defend them and their family, protect them and their family, they choose not to. They choose to be mesmerized by the football season and watch football all day long. They choose to follow behind Kim Kardashian. They choose to watch, Housewives of Atlanta or whatever it is that they watch. They choose to participate in that because it's a choice. And they're given the opportunity to seek after God, to seek all kinds of knowledge. Again, you have I'm talking to you right now on a supercomputer, like literally leaning on the edge of the windowsill, smoking a cigar, talking to you on a supercomputer. So it's just that I choose to use it differently. So people make those choices, and it's unfortunate that that's what they do. But again, I believe that's where free will comes in at, and prayer comes in, because I refuse to believe that if you pray that you won't be guided in the right direction, because every time I've ever prayed, I've been guided in the right direction. So people just have to do they have to put down the BS and really focus on what's important. And again, I think we're getting ready to get to a point now to where people are going to be presented with some information and some things that I don't think they're going to have a choice. Just like when you saw the blue lights in New York over the past week, and they said that was a transformer blowing up that lit up the sky blue and red and purple. I don't know if you saw those videos. I have a degree in electrical engineering. I designed transmission lines for a living for 5 years. I've been in and out of substations. I've been in and out of power plants. When a power plant blows up, it blows up like a bomb. It's not going to emit any blue light. Here locally in New Orleans and Kenner, we saw what, from the video, from what I saw, that was some kind of freaking beam shot down from a satellite. There was a blue beam shooting down, destroying electrical power station. It wasn't, they said, oh, the substation blew up. No, that was a beam coming out of the sky. So as human beings, we have to realize that our planet, our understanding, the knowledge that we've been given as to what kind of technology we have currently, what type of technology our government has, what type of technology that the most elite people in the world have, we have absolutely no clue. We're all given cell phones, right? But if you and I have an iPhone or an Android phone, what does the person who actually is probably one of the most elite, wealthiest people in the world have? What are they using? They're not using an iPhone, I promise you that. They got something way better than an iPhone. So, but unfortunately, people are distracted, so they don't think that deep and they don't see that far. And I don't think they'll ever see that far until it's presented directly to them, until it directly affects their life, until the stuff that they're spraying in the sky blocks out the sun so much that there's no food. You know what I'm saying? Right. Until the water's polluted so much that, you can't have a drink of water, then people will pay attention. But as of now, people aren't paying attention. And if you do pay attention, it's frightening. Just the simple fact that Harvard and NASA were talking about they were going to do an experiment to dim the sun. I saw that, and I was reading that, and I was like, wow. So you guys said we got global warming, so we need to dim the sun. But when you dim the sun, the water cycle, which we all learn as children, condensation, evaporation, precipitation, the key to the water cycle is sunlight. So if you're going to dim the sun, what you're telling me is you're going to kill the planet. That's what you're telling me. Period. Oh, I want to kill a planet, so I'm going to dim the sun. That's the only thing that can result from it, is you're killing the planet. When you kill the planet, who are you killing? You're killing us. So if people would just pay attention, I think things would change. But unfortunately, like I told you before, I think there's some intelligent force that's put in place or that's actively working that people aren't paying attention. They're all distracted on purpose. They have to be. Absolutely have to be.
Yeah, I was, and even some of the magicians I've talked to say that. Like, nobody has all the answers. That's something that you got to learn, right? So when we follow these things, we go and we follow people to try to get answers, or we listen to radio shows or whatever, at least I do, read books, whatever, to try to get answers. And some people have some really good answers based on their experiences. But when it comes to the big stuff about life after death and all, and, you know, spirituality and what's going on, they really deep down just have the same questions you do. They call it certain things, but they don't have the answers either. So you really got to find your own truth. And the thing about it is being distracted is what scares me the most. And when I say scared, I mean for my son, basically. I was never really scared about anything until I had a child, because I realized, hey, he's got to grow up in this world too. And these people around here, I tried to tell him, hey, December 17th, 2017, the government admitted to UFOs and aliens. That's a paradigm shift, right? They admitted that they saw these things and that they're studying these things, that they put a little money behind it. They even got pictures, and I shouted it to the rooftops, Dark, and nobody cared. Maybe 2 people in my whole neighborhood cared. Everybody else thought I was making it up. That worries me a little bit, that my son has to grow up in a society that is so distracted from what's really going on.
Yeah, but as a parent, as a father, you know, we have to do our job and educate them, because at the end of the day, you can manage, my sons can manage that group of people. Like, they can manage and live their lives and be prepared for what may or may not come. Just with the understanding and knowledge that, hey man, you know, the average person is dumb as a brick and they don't pay attention to anything, and you need to be paying attention. And unfortunately, there's going to be consequences for people not paying attention when things go wrong, but you'll be prepared. And that's the only thing that you can do in that situation. Like, people don't pay attention to anything. So when Donald Trump came out and said, hey, I want to create a space force, I was like, okay, bro. We need a space force. Huh? Like, we don't already have that. Like, we don't have men in space already right now. But when you read between the lines, what he was saying is, I'm going to fund it more than it's already been funded, and I'm making it public so you know, as the American citizens, that we have a space force. So he's bringing it out of the dark into the light that, hey, you know, we need a space force. He didn't say why. He didn't say what the threat was. But in his exact words, America needs to dominate space. It's like, wow, okay. That's deep. You know what I'm saying? Now, if you know how to read between the lines, either there's a man-made threat in space or there's an extraterrestrial threat in space, but it's something that needs to be dealt with. And could there be a man-made threat? We know that China is doing all kind of experiments. They even came out where they said they created their own artificial sun. I don't know if you saw that. So when you pay attention to what's going on, and not the noise, you know, not the noise is, you know, there's a government shutdown. The noise is this, but if you just pay attention to what's really, really going on, and get past the noise of people talking about the president's this and this person's racist, that person's that. When you get past the noise, because that's what the noise is there for, to distract you. Once you listen past the noise, it's kind of obvious that there are huge things going on right now, bigger than probably in any time in history. When you look and see the Ring of Fire being so active, Krakatoa exploding, and half of the freaking volcano falling into the ocean, then a tsunami, and you see all this going on. Again, I refer back to the Bible and say it's all biblical, because that's what everything that was being said in that Bible, in the book of Revelation, is coming true. But simultaneously, while that's going on, if you just pay attention, there may be a chance for you to either repent and save your life or save your soul, or actually maybe a chance for you to save your family from a harsh disaster that will be going on. You know, so I urge people to pay attention. I mean, that's what I really, really urge people to do. I really, really urge them to pay attention. And the information is out there, just like this next winter that's coming, not this one, the one following, that's supposed to be horrific. I mean, life-changing winter that's coming. The average person doesn't know about it because the people on the news not talking about it, but the information is there, you know, and you got a year and a half to prepare, to get firewood, to get water, to get food. And let's say it doesn't happen. And guess what? I got plenty of firewood, I got plenty of water, I got plenty of food. But if it does, guess what? A lot of people are going to have major problems. I mean, they're going to have major, major problems for them and their families, but because they won't pay attention, bro.
Yeah, for sure. I wonder sometimes, though, when you were talking earlier about the stuff that people saw and experienced, did they ever contact you as it was happening? Like, man, I got a demon in my house right now. You know, is that
I've
ever
had
happened?
people contact me. I had people contact me with dog man outside of their house. I had one guy who, I think it's probably safe to tell his story now. It's been a while, and I don't think he'll spaz out. So a while ago, I released an album, and I'll tell you guys the whole story because I think he should be good. I released an album called Dog Man Undisclosed. Literally, people know, I think 4 encounters from that album was from this one guy. His first encounter that he had was he was taking his dog out walking, and they get to this tree line that's at the top of this kind of hollow where you can kind of go down into a deep, I don't know if that's how you pronounce it right, but it's at the top of a valley. And down in the bottom of it, you know, he sees some deers running, some things moving around, and his dog is urinating on a tree. And then he sees this gigantic buck come running. And he was like, man, this deer was running for his life. I mean, he's like, he said he knew immediately something was chasing it, but he couldn't see what was chasing it. He looked around, you know, he told his dog to sit down, and he was looking, he squatted down, and then he started to hear, in his words, he said, man, it sounded like a freaking freight train tearing through the woods. And he said the deer got to the other side where he had to shoot up the hill and go uphill to get away from this thing. And he said, man, I got glimpses of this thing as it moved. He said, when it got to the hill where it had to go up, he said, I couldn't see everything. He said, but I saw this gigantic black mass moving. He goes home, he thinks nothing of it, right? It's like, all right, whatever. This is about 5 miles away from his house. A couple of days later, he's sitting around the house, and his dog is on the floor underneath his feet, underneath his legs. So if you're sitting on your sofa and you got your legs propped up on a coffee table, his dog is underneath his legs in that little space where his legs are propped up. And he's watching TV, and he says his dog stands up literally under him and pushes his legs up off the table, and then moves off and turns and looks at him, kind of like the dog is giving him a signal. Then the dog just starts barking, going ape crazy. I mean, going crazy. But it's not going, it's barking at the doorway of his bedroom towards the window, but it's not going into the bedroom where the window is. And so he says he looks in the window and he sees this gigantic head drop down. And I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, man, I saw a head the size of, pretty much almost the size of the window drop down. I was like, well, a human head? He's like, no, this wasn't no human. He said, at first I thought it was a bear head. He said, because it was so big, but he's like, you know, we don't really have a whole bunch of bears around here. He's like, but it drops down. He's like, so I go get my shotgun and I go to the window. He says, I'm moving towards the window. He had a bicycle outside on the side of his house. He said he hears the bicycle get hit and fall over. He hears a little yip, like a little, and then he sees this dark figure running off into the woods around his house. Now, I'll paint a picture of his whole property for you. He fixes cars and he buys and sells old trucks. So the front side of his house has a pretty long driveway. He said about 50 yards before you get to the street. And then his property is in a clearing. So imagine a house that's in a circle cleared, but around it on all sides is woods, except for that front side where the road is. And then on the other side of the road is woods as well. To the back side of his house, if you keep going, there's an old dirt road that's owned by a man who has a private airport on top of a mountain, on top of a kind of a hill back there. And so this thing is running off on the left side of his house into the woods. So he thinks it's strange, but, you know, he's like, I don't know, whatever. So the next day, he goes to take his dog out and lets his dog out to use the bathroom. So he opens the back door. The dog goes out the back porch, down to the side, and literally uses the bathroom on the side of the house. Normally, he said, man, normally my dog will run all off into the woods and run off and do whatever it's got to do. And I have to call the dog back, but it just stayed close to the house and comes back inside. 2 days pass, and he's sitting on the sofa again watching a football game. and he hears something beating on his van that he has out in the driveway. He had a white van in the driveway. He had like an old truck that he was working on trying to sell. He had a couple more cars that were out on the little roadway. And all these are just vehicles that he's fixing to try and flip and sell. Pretty much a hustler. Actually, really smart guy. And he said, he hears something slapping on the side of the van. Like if you were to take your hand and slap on the metal on the van, like slap the door of your car, he hears that, but he hears it over and over and over again. And so he grabs a shotgun because he thinks somebody's out there messing around with his car, with his van. And he goes to the front window at first, and he clicks on a light to the shotgun. And when he scans outside, he sees this little, he said it looked like a fox, is what it looked like, except it had a much bigger head. And he said it's about 4.5 feet tall. He sees this thing standing up next to the van, beating on the van, like hitting his hand on the van. Then it drops down on all fours and down to its belly, and it starts crawling out of the light towards a tree. So if you and I are standing in that window, the van is on the left-hand side of the driveway, which is kind of that leads up from the road. It's a clear line of sight to that van. To the right side of that driveway, almost in the front side of his yard, is this big old tree. So it starts to crawl over to the tree, but it's not crawling sideways. It's crawling like if you lay on your stomach and you start scooting to the left, it's kind of moving like that. It's slowly moving over. And that's when he called me. And he starts literally, while he's talking to me, this thing is there. And he says, James, there's this little fox-like thing outside in my front yard. It was standing up and it's crawling. He's like, it's cute, man. Like, you know, it's not really threatening anything. And I said, hey, do me a favor. Shine the light in the trees back on the other side of the driveway. I said, and tell me what you see on the far side of the driveway. I said, shine a light. So he says, well, the light won't shine that far because of the window. I said, open the front door and shine the light. And he said, well, if I open the door, my dog gonna run out there. I said, open the door and shine the light and tell me what you see. So I literally hear him open the door, go, and then you hear the dog going, like panting. And then I said, okay, so what do you see? And he said, I don't see anything. Then he says, wait. And then he starts cursing. You hear the door slam. Blam. I said, what did you see, man? He said, dude, there are these two eyes. He says, eye shine that's reddish yellow. And he said, it's so high up in a tree. He's just like 8 feet up. And I was like, yeah, that's mama or daddy over there watching this thing. I said, it's probably baiting you to come outside. He was like, no, you don't understand. He was like, I've seen eye shine before. These are way too big. I said, bro, you got these things on your property, right? So it gets worse. Goes inside. He's inside. He goes to bed. Like, to hell with it. Because he really can't do anything. He's panicking or whatever. But he's like, man, I'm going to go to bed. At this point in time, he knows something crazy is going on. So now he's sleeping with a shotgun next to his bed. He got AK-47. He got all kinds, like an AK-47 handgun is what he called it, which is a little short AK-47 with a banana clip on it. So now he's literally sleeping in the bed with all this stuff around him. A couple of days pass, and he would open the door, and the dog wouldn't go any further than like the front side of the house, about 10 feet away from the front door, and about no more than 15 feet away from the back door of the house. Dog would not go. Finally, the dog actually goes out and runs around into the woods and uses the bathroom, and he figures whatever it was that was in the area is gone because his dog was reacting to it. So he's feeling a lot better about the situation. And days pass and nothing goes on. He decides he needs to go kill some deer, so he goes out. He wants to go hunting. He goes back out and leaves the dog at home, and he's sitting there in his tree stand waiting for the deers to come. And he starts to hear that same noise of something tearing through the bushes. This time it's tearing towards him, and he points the rifle into the bushes, and he can't really see. All he can see is this black mass, but it's coming directly towards him. So he fires one shot in the air, it stops moving, and then he said it starts moving backwards. He fires another shot, he hears it move backwards in a rapidly, very, very rapid pace. So now he knows there's something there that's, that's really, really abnormal. And so he goes to talk to his neighbors. And he told me, he said, well, James, I got these neighbors, and I don't have a lot of neighbors around me. I got the guy who owns the airport on top of the hill. And he said, I have this black family. Let me see something. My battery's going dead. I think I'm all right. He says, I have this black family that lives about 7 miles away from me. I'm going to go talk to them and see what's going on. Calls me a couple of days later. Actually, about 3 days later, because I missed his phone calls. And I actually called him back, and he's telling me about the family, and he's asking them if there's anything weird going on, and have they seen anything, because he saw this little fox-like creature, and the patriarch of the family didn't want to talk to him about it. But the son told him, he said, yeah, man, you really got to be careful. You got to keep your house lit up. And they have like a little family compound where there's like 5 houses on one piece of property. But that family literally has football field lights on their property. So how you go out at night, your kids playing baseball?
Yeah.
And they have those huge lights? They have those kind of lights on their property. And it's lighting up the whole property. So it lights up the entire property, all the houses, and then all the way out to the wood lines is well lit up. And the son is telling him, yeah, man, you just got to keep your property well lit, and whatever you do, leave these things alone, because as long as you don't try and shoot at them, they won't do you nothing. You'll be fine. Over the next couple of days, he's harassed at night, like, beating on the side of his house and little crazy stuff, just aggravating his dog more than anything, because the dog is running from room to room to room to room to room, and it's just harassing his dog. Then I think that's all the story I've ever really told, right? But this is part of the story I never told, because at that point in time, I was really worried about his safety, and this has been over a year now that he told me this. He's back at home again. The activity has still been going on. And what sparked this was there were these 2 guys that went up to that airport. They took a 4-wheeler and went around the backside of his property. They were going up to the little airport hangar up there. Well, they go up there, and on their way, they encounter something which sends them hightailing it out of there on foot. Not on the 4-wheeler, but on foot, on the 2 4-wheelers on foot. And they end up coming to his property, to his back door, beating on the door like, man, let us in, let us in, let us in the house. And he's like, well, no, I'm not letting y'all in my house. I don't know y'all. He's like, man, please let us in. And they tell him that they saw this gigantic wolf. And it was actually 4 wolves that they saw. And so he starts questioning them, like, did it look like a wolf? Did it look like a fox? They're like, no, these are wolves. They big, like huge. And he ends up getting those guys a ride into town. And those guys go around telling people about what they saw. Days after that, he's sitting on the sofa and watching TV, and he sees this red light scan his house. You know how you have a laser pointer, right?
Right.
That you use to point at a whiteboard or a chalkboard a teacher would use. So imagine a laser pointer with points of light, but it's, the length of his house, a red beam that scans the top of his house, and it scans all the way down to the floor, and it scans it back up. He's like, what the hell is this? So he gets up, grabs his gun, and goes to look to the window. And when he looks out of the window in the woods, he can see these kind of little green lights. So he saw 6 on one side of the house, and he saw 3 on the other. And at first he couldn't tell what it was. He's like, but it wasn't eye shine from an animal. It was just like these green, like little lights. So he goes out of the front door and starts heading towards a little area of the woods where he sees the lights, but then the lights retreat. Now, keep in mind, he can't really see a full figure yet of what it is, but he knows that these lights are retreating because they're going in the opposite direction. That was the first night he encountered. The second day, he decided, okay, I'm going to light up the woods around my house. So he got these little solar lights. You have those little solar lights that you stick in your garden?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. They got the little solar panels on top. They're like, yeah.
Right. So he gets 20 of those. He starts sticking them around around his property line where the woods are. That way, at nighttime, those little lights would light up. It was either the next night or the night after. The scan happens again, where it's just this scan. But this time, the first time it was horizontal. Like if me and you are sitting there and we're looking at a wall, it goes from the top of the wall down and then back up. The next night, it was coming from the ceiling, like coming down on his property, going across. So this time it was from a vertical direction. And so he's like, I don't know what the hell this is, grabs a shotgun, goes outside. Now with the light in the woods, he can actually see figures, human figures like men. And so he's like, hey, what are y'all doing on my property? Nobody says anything. He's like, listen, what are y'all doing on my property? He tries to pursue them. They retreat again. And this whole night, this particular night, it's this kind of cat and mouse where he tries to pursue these people that are in the woods. And every time he tried to pursue them, they would retreat. So finally he gets tired. It's like 4 o'clock in the morning. He's like, to hell with this. I'm going to sleep. Whatever they're going to do, they're going to do. And at 4 o'clock in the morning, the dog starts growling at the back door. And so he grabs his Saga 12 shotgun and he creeps up to the back door. When he opens the door, there's this man standing on his back porch. Not on his back porch, but if you walk off the back porch down the steps, he's up above the guy, and the guy's working his way around the side of his house. And so he points the weapon at the man. He said, listen, man, I don't know who y'all are or why y'all here, but just talk to me, man. You know, what's going on? Now, he had some friends that was selling drugs and, you know, a little weed. So he thought it was may have been a DEA or FBI because he was down by this guy who's got a lot of weed. He's like, look, I don't know why you're here. I don't know what you want, man, but just talk to me, man. Tell me something. What you doing on my property? And keep in mind, he has a Saga 12 shotgun pointing at this guy. He says the guy looks back at him with this look like he's not even concerned that he's pointing his shotgun at him. And that's when he notices the other lights closing in on him, which is the light turned out to be the light that was on this guy's helmet was a little green light. And so he sees these other green lights closing in on him. And he realizes, man, if he shoots this guy, by the time he shoots this guy, these other people are going to shoot him. So he says, listen, man, I'm here. If you need to talk to me, just tell me something. Say something to me. Why are you here? What's going on? So he takes the gun, the shotgun, and points it up, and he holds it in his left hand. He's got it pointed up to where it's like he's not being threatening. He's like, listen, man, you're on my property. I just want you to tell me why you're here. Dude says nothing. He just walks off and continues to walk across the property into the other woods. The other lights cross the property going to the other woods, the wood section. So they're crossing his property like they're sweeping across it. And he decides he's just going to go back inside. He said, the hell with it. You know, ain't nobody talking to me. He goes inside. He sits on the sofa, eventually falls asleep. The next morning he gets up. He goes to the sheriff's office. He asks the sheriff if they had any kind of operation going on on his property. They say no. He goes to the state trooper's office, asks the state trooper if he knew about any kind of operation going on the property. They say no. Now he's really freaking out, and this is when he calls and he's telling me this part of the story. He's like, bro, I don't know what's going on. These dudes is on my property. Why are they here? And I said, well, listen. I said, I know for a fact that there have been teams of people who deal with things that go bump in the night. I said, I just think you ran into one of the teams. He's like, but I pointed the shotgun at this dude, and he's like, the look in his eyes was like, he didn't care. I said, bro, I'm telling you, I think you bumped into one of them that goes out and deals with this stuff. And he was like, bro, this is scary, man. What should I do? I said, you shouldn't do nothing. I said, you should just wait and see what happens. So days pass. Everything's quiet. Not having no problems on the property, not having nothing's going on. He's definitely not seeing these creatures around no more. So now he starts feeling better. When he lets his dog out, the dog is running around as normal. No issues, no nothing. He runs into the guy who owns the little airplane hangar at the top of that kind of hill. It's not really a mountain, but it's definitely tall enough to where you got to drive up it to get to the airport hangar. And he asked him, he said, hey, man, did you see some weird guys on your property lately? He's like, no, but my employees been telling me about these big old wolves that they were seeing, but it looks like they're gone. And what him and I were able to surmise from his encounter is that those two guys that actually encountered them, the dogmen at first, because these were definitely dogmen, that they must have ran off and got on the phone and started telling their business and telling what happened, and somebody came and swept and ran those things out of there. Now, he said he never heard any gunshots. He never heard anything like, an offensive war was happening, no explosions, but he hasn't had those things on his property since. Now, he has had some Bigfoot activity, and around the time when he was having that activity, the dogman, normally he would go deer hunting. He would be able to take 3-4 deers. He said the only deer that he saw was that one that was being chased up the hollow and out of the hollow. He hadn't seen any deers. He said normally there would be deer walking across his front yard. He could shoot a deer out the window, but he didn't see any game animals at all. He said, in fact, he said he didn't see no birds. He didn't see no deer. He didn't see no rabbits. He didn't see nothing. Like everything left the area. So
that's an intense story, man. Wow.
That's one of the dogman stories. I never ever told the whole story. I only divided into pieces and told small pieces of his story. And I didn't want to tell the whole thing because of his safety, but I know for a fact he should be fine because he ain't even in that area no more at this point in time.
Well, see, like if you think about that, if you were a non-believer in any of that stuff, and it sounds like maybe he was before it happened, and then it happened.
Oh, no, he didn't know nothing about that. He didn't know nothing about dogmen.
Your whole life changes after that. I mean, I can't imagine how his life is now. The things that he's thinking about, the things that has sparked his curiosity, and who he's afraid to talk to, and who he's feels welcome to talk to about. Do you go to your family and talk about these things? I wouldn't. I would probably call you or talk to my listeners. I wouldn't even talk about that kind of stuff with my family.
But what his encounter did, some good information did come out of his encounter, though. One of the things that worked very, very well in between that time, because this wasn't, I condensed it down, but me and I were talking for over a month as all this was going on. And just the natural storytelling, you kind of condense things down a little bit. But one of the things that he did discuss with me that worked, that kind of kept those things away, was that he was getting ammonia and bleach. And you have those little pesticide sprayers where you spray the little for the ants and bugs. He was getting ammonia and bleach, and he was mixing them two together, and he was spraying around his property. And he tested it one night where he sprayed one side of the property with that, and the other side he didn't. And that particular night, they came peeping through the window on the opposite side. Then he sprayed the other side, and they didn't peep at all. So he was getting to the point where in town, people were kind of trying to figure out why this guy was buying all this damn ammonia. And he was like, man, people kind of looking at me weird because I'm going to the dollar store buying like 10 things of ammonia.
They might
like,
think he's cooking meth too or something,
Yeah. So, and I remember that conversation. He was like, yeah, man, these people think I'm losing my mind out here or doing something wrong because I'm buying all this ammonia. I go into the dollar store and buy a case of ammonia. I'm like, well, man, you got to do what you got to do, if you want to protect yourself. So one of the things that I can tell you that he did not do is he did nothing offensive towards these creatures whatsoever. So he did not shoot at them. The only time he ever pointed a weapon at him was when he was pointing that shotgun with the light at him. So I think that was one of the things that really, really helped him. Now, he hasn't had any activity since, but he's also decided he was going to move because of some other issues he was having out there. So I think it's fine for me to tell that story, but that's why I kind of, when we talk about dogman, I've talked to people who've had so many encounters. Like I can sniff out a lie from the very beginning because there's certain things that there's a certain progression to things. Like there's encounters where a person stumbles upon a dogman. So you're driving down the roadway at night. One is in the bushes or in the ditch because it's about to cross the road, and you actually get a glimpse of it, but it's in passing, right? Then there's other encounters where actually these things are invading your property or invading your personal space. Those tend to be pretty long and drawn out because they don't just come once and leave. And then there's other encounters where people are actually hunters or in the woods, and they actually interrupt these things hunting. So you're in a tree stand trying to shoot you a deer and take a deer, and they're in the woods taking a deer at the same time, right? And those are primarily the types of encounters, and each encounter has a different flow to how it happens. And it's always consistent. It's just almost formulaic how it happens and what these creatures tend to do. That's why when people ask me about Dogman, I'll sit there and say, well, 90% of the stuff that you hear about Dogman is out here right now is just not true. When they get into the descriptions of the creatures, and they get into the description of their sizes, the shapes, the way they look, the way they move, people talking about them mumbling, talking, disappearing. 90% of that stuff is not true. When you start talking about dogmen actually vanishing, that's why I tell people, I think you're dealing with something demonic. Now, when people start saying, yeah, this dogman cloaked and it actually moved closer to me and it was cloaked, I'm like, nah, bro, that's not consistent with anything I've ever heard. No cloaking. I've heard disappearing, like it was there and then it was gone, but not cloaking to where it was the predator and you could see it moving. Nah, that's where people lose me. So, overall, when you start talking about that topic, it's been kind of abused to the point to where people blended in so much fiction.
I think we might have lost him. I think his battery might have died. I'll call him back in here in just a minute. That story that he's talking about makes me think of it makes me think of the time I was in the woods in my 20s when I was with my friends, and we were, well, back when I used to hunt animals. I really don't hunt animals anymore, but we used to. And sometimes you would shoot a deer and you would lose it. And, I never would be one to want to give up, because in my mind, I always thought the deer were suffering somewhere out in the woods, and I couldn't stand the thought of it. And I pretty much forced all my friends to go out there with me and look for this deer. And we were in the deep woods of Arkansas in a place called Grapevine. So there's some really deep woods in there. And the thing about it is when we got to, so we started tracking this deer, little blood trinkets here and there, and it was raining. So it was really hard. It's one of those times where we practically got lost looking for this thing. And as he was telling that story, it made me think about that, because we had an experience of something that was trying to attack us in the woods that we did not know what the hell it was. We could see the bushes. I'd like to get them on the show and talk about it, all of them. But we could see the bushes rumbling and like something would come at us. And when we would shine the light one way, we would hear like huffing and puffing, and these bushes just start really rumbling towards us. So you know what it sounds like when you're in the woods, if you've ever been in the woods, and you hear something making a racket as it's coming towards you. Leaves crunching, sticks crunching, bushes ruffling, that kind of stuff. But it was moving really fast. And when we would turn around and try to shine our spotlights on it, it wasn't there. And then we'd turn our lights back around again to look for the deer or whatever, because we kind of brushed it off. And back then, I didn't care about the paranormal, didn't even think about it. I thought it was a hog, because down here we have wild hogs that'll attack you in the woods. And anyway, so I kept shining the light on the ground thinking it was a hog, because I could see the bushes rustling. But we never figured it out. There were 6 of us out there with about 4 spotlights, and the only thing that we saw were bushes rustling and something that was coming at us. And to this day, I still don't know what it is. But we've skipped about like 2 breaks, believe it or not. So we have to take one. I kind of have to. But if you're just tuning in, this is Lighting the Void. I'm Joe Roop. We're live on the Fringe FM. If you want to support the show, you can go to the website and donate, or use the Amazon portal, or grab a t-shirt. I'll see if I can get Dark back on the phone here, and then we'll finish out the show. And don't forget, this stuff continues all night. So if you're listening live after the show, the Secret Teachings with Ryan Gable will be on. But we'll be right back, guys. Just hang out just for a little bit.
This is Elle. I listen to Lighting the Void because it's interactive radio with good content, interesting guests, and a humble host, sharing this journey through the esoteric. Hey, Joe Roop. Thanks for having us along for the ride.
Thank you so much for a delightful evening.
Well, I got a lot of ground to cover.
I'm Ryan Gable, and I want to remind you to keep your radio, phone, tablet, or computer tuned to The Fringe FM, and visit the website, thefringe.fm, to listen to the entire lineup of shows. You can also catch my broadcast, The Secret Teachings, Monday through Friday, beginning at 12 a.m. midnight U.S. Pacific Time, right here on The Fringe FM.
Hi, this is Aaron Hunter, host of Real Paranormal Activity, the podcast where we tell real paranormal experiences of people from around the world. And we also conduct interviews with authors, investigators, psychics, and mediums. Real people, real stories, real fear. Thursdays at 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern on The Fringe FM. See you then.
Hey, Fringe FM listeners. Did you know that when you're on the road with limited data or no Wi-Fi available, you can still listen to every minute of the Fringe FM by calling 701-719-3971. No smartphone, app, or internet needed. Saves your data plan and no extra cost if you have unlimited minutes. Call 701-719-3971. That's 701-719-3971. Listen to the Fringe FM on any phone, anytime, anywhere.
Poor water quality is a major health issue, and it's only getting worse. Municipalities can't keep up. Standards have dropped, and pollutants are increasing. Where does it all end? It ends by keeping the pollutants outside of your home with HydroCare's advanced systems available at Wave Home Solutions. No less than the best purification materials and processes have been developed by HydroCare to provide you with healthy, clean water for drinking, cooking, and showering. HydroCare far surpasses the competition in removing chlorine, odors, iron, lead, chemicals, limescale, and much more. Don't settle for less when it comes to your water. We'll take care of the toughest water problems for you, whether it's from a city or well source. Satisfaction guaranteed. For more information, call 888-997-WAVE. That's 888-997-WAVE. Or go to bestwater123.com. That's bestwater123.com.
Wave Home Solutions for a healthy, comfortable home.
You're listening to Lighting the Void Radio.
If you are interested in occult subjects, psychic abilities, symbols, tarot, witchcraft, magic, or anything similarly related, my book Occult Arcana will provide you with a truly objective overview of these topics and more. Written in anything but modern language, Occult Arcana was compiled to help researchers balance their quest for a better understanding of the meanings of and in such studies. Occult Arcana is available in softcover and digital form from www.thesecretteachings.info. All copies can also be autographed if requested. That's Occult Arcana from www.thesecretteachings.info.
Do you want to lose weight but have no idea where to begin? The Fast Start Diet, a 3-day weight loss plan, is the answer. 3 days of nutritionally balanced, calorie-restricted meals delivered right to your door. No shopping, no measuring, and no cooking. Everything is prepared for you and ready to eat at home or on the go. The Fast Start Diet has all the amazing benefits of intermittent fasting without starving. We've helped thousands of people who have struggled to reach their weight loss goals. Isn't it time we helped you? With the Fast Start Diet, you'll lose weight and feel great.
Find us on Amazon or go to faststartdiet.com and use promo code POWERSAVE to get 10% off your first box. And as a special bonus, we will include our #1 rated appetite suppressant spray free with your order. Whatever your diet plans are, start with us at faststartdiet.com and use promo code POWERSAVE.
Follow The Fringe FM on Facebook and Twitter at The Fringe FM. Start your evenings with the Fringe FM long before those other shows get started. Exclusively live on the Fringe FM, hear the Quantum Hologram Matrix with the Reverend John Polk, Tuesdays at 5 Pacific, 8 Eastern. And our newest show, Sci-Spy Radio with Suzanne Ross, Wednesdays at 5 Pacific, 8 Eastern. Then stay up, because we're burning the midnight oil well into the morning hour. The truth is out there, and so are we. Lock it in. The Fringe FM.
Welcome back to Lighting the Void. I'm your host, Joe Roop. We're live on KTLK Digital Broadcasting the Fringe FM. Don't forget, after this show, a brand new edition of The Secret Teachings with Ryan Gable will be on. And just to be clear, that show is on the network only, so you have to understand that the other places that you hear us are just other places where we post the show, whether it's Spreaker, TuneIn, whatever. The network is the main source for listening. There's a chat room there if you want to hang out or put links and stuff in, and it'll be live on the Fringe FM. He also has an archive subscription if you want to check out his older shows. We did get Dark Waters back on the phone here. He just had a little bit of a battery loss issue, which is no big deal. But I was telling them the story about how that as soon as your battery died, how I went into the woods to track down a deer, because I never could shoot something and think, okay, you know, I was taught shoot to kill when I was younger. So when I killed it, all I could think about was that it was suffering. So we spent hours out in the woods. It was raining, it was dark, and we were trying to track it. And I'm just shortening this story up for you really quick. There were 5 or 6 of us out there, I think. I'm trying to think all, but I know we had like 4 spotlights. And what would happen is we were all in the same area, and this noise would come at us, and you know what it sounds like when something's rushing you through the woods, like rushing us. Mm-hmm. And we would turn around, and all of us would put our lights on it, and there was nothing there. And then it would rush us from the backside, wherever the light wasn't at. That's when it would rush us. And then we'd turn around and point the light at it again. And so I was thinking, okay, it's not a bear, it's not a deer, it's got to be a squirrel, a hog, a possum, or something. So I even got my light really down low, because the woods were kind of thick, I'll be honest with you, and started scanning the bushes, and I still couldn't see anything. And to this day, none of us know what that was, but we all had this weird, creepy feeling that there was something out there that we couldn't explain, you know.
Was the bushes actually rustling, or was it just a sound?
No, they were moving. Rustling? You could. That's what I try to tell Aaron, because the one time I swung the light, well, I just revealed one of their names, but a buddy of mine's name's Aaron. I swung the light around, and I could see the bush moving. The bush is just rattling. And I said, there's something there. These bushes are moving, you know? But there was no, I mean, I even put it on the ground, man, and there wasn't anything there.
Did y'all find a deer?
Nope. We tried to track that deer for hours and never found it. We found blood everywhere, but it just kept dead-ended. We didn't even find the hide, man. It's the only deer I've ever lost in my life.
Something took your deer. That's what it was. I was trying to run you off. That sounded like a Bigfoot. No growling.
So? Yeah, there was a little bit of growling. Yeah, at first, but then it didn't growl no more. Like, that's the first thing we heard was growling and huffing and puffing.
Yeah, it sounded like a big. Was it a growl, or was it like a roar?
Man, if I can think of what it sounded like a. I thought it was a deer at first, because a deer will do this blow. They'll blow at you, right? They'll go, you know. But the way this thing was doing it, it was going, hoom, like a hoom, kind of like a weird sound. And then it growled a little bit, kind of like a dog would growl. And I'm thinking, that's got to be I thought it was a critter. All kinds of stuff went through my head. Wolf, coyote, something. Nothing. You know, we had 4, you know how big spotlights are in the dark woods. They shine everything. And we couldn't see it. It was just gone. But every time we turned around, then it would be on the other side of us. So I thought, okay, we're being swarmed by a pack or something. All of us got so scared, we almost started going back to back,
Yeah, it sounded like a pack. Like you had a bunch of Bigfoots surrounding y'all. Like y'all might have took the deer and shot them, and then they grabbed it, and it was more than one of them in the area. Did y'all look up in the trees?
You know what? No. But the trees weren't moving. I didn't hear anything climb a tree. The trees weren't moving. Those where we were in the woods, it was a lot of thicket and low brush, few trees. But that part we just crossed the creek bottom, then we had chased the blood trail into a thicker part of the woods. But I didn't think to look up a tree because the noise was on the ground coming all around us,
Well, one of the things that I know for a fact that Dogman will do is Dogman will take a person's deer, bring it up into a tree, and leave it in a tree, and then run the person off. That's one thing I know for a fact that Dogman will do. They will take that deer, bring it up into a tree, and then run that person off, and then go back and get that damn deer. And I know that for a fact.
You got to understand, the guys I was with, one of them's name was Junior, who's a backwood. I'm talking about backwood. He knows it too. Our deer has never gotten away from this guy, and we were bound and determined to track this thing. Aaron, another friend of mine's with me. His name was Aaron. Ken was with me. We were all out there. There's no deer that anybody would have shot. We would have tracked it, but all we found was blood and dead ends. That was it. Nothing. Maybe I did have a Bigfoot encounter. That's cool.
I think that is a Bigfoot encounter. That is, because that's the huffing sounds like Bigfoot. The growling. Now the Dogman growl. That's how I know it's not a Dogman, because when they growl, you can be like, I ain't never heard a growl like that before. And it's not like it's long, and it's ridiculously long to the point where everybody that's ever heard that was like, man, it literally sounded like some kind of hound from hell was growling at me. And if you had more than one, they would have just came out on you and ran you off. They wouldn't have been hiding. They ain't about that hiding in no bushes. They're going to show themselves. They're going to at least show a head. They're going to show something that would make you run. And in your guys' case, if you shoot, then you got problems. But they're going to show something. It's not going to be, I'm just hiding over here and disguising myself. That's more of a Bigfoot trait where they kind of hide in the brush and try and run you off and intimidate you. But if you go too far, then they'll do something.
It seemed pretty invisible, though. As fast as I put the light on it, I put the light on it as soon as I heard it, and all I saw was moving bushes. It was really weird.
Yeah, that sounded about
really weird.
But yeah, that sounded about right for Bigfoot. That sounded about right, especially if you're in really, really thick brush. That sounded about right for them.
Something else that's strange too about that, and I'll tell you, and I'm sure you've got stories about people in the woods too. But Junior's dad he always had people over at the house because his dad was kind of a partying type guy. And he had this woman over that I could have swore at the time I didn't care about the paranormal or anything like that. I was just a football dumb jock, that's all I cared about. But we found things that were hung up in the trees out there. We found a snake head with the tongue pulled out of it, hung up in the tree. Like a copperhead's head that had been cut off with the tongue pulled out, hanging from a tree with a little sigil on it in the woods. I don't know if it was the day before or the day after, but it was around the same time. So I don't know.
Around the same time y'all shot that deer?
It was around the same time, because I remember when we grabbed it, it wasn't raining, so it wasn't the same day. Because I remember it rained all that day and all that night. But I know it was the same time I was down there, because when I went down there, I only stayed for a week. But I remember finding that in the woods. Could just been anything, but it was weird, But why would somebody cut a snake head off, put it in a bag, and hang it on a tree? Unless it was just a kid playing around, but I can't see a kid playing with a copperhead.
Yeah, I don't see no kid doing that like that.
No.
That don't make no sense.
No,
that makes sense at all.
So that sounds normal to you, because it's amazing to me. I guess you've heard some stories of people in the woods that have seen stuff disappear like that, maybe, or some crazy stuff.
Oh yeah, I definitely heard about people's animals being taken. I've heard people's shooting a deer and their dog, sending a dog in and trying to track the deer and the dog come up missing. one guy's what do you call him, Labrador Retriever. He found his Labrador up in a tree, neck snapped, wedged in between two branches. All kinds of crazy stuff, man. All kinds of crazy stuff. The worst thing that I've heard that happened outdoors was I spoke to this gentleman who was a rock climber, and this scared the living daylights out of me. And he stopped climbing rocks after this. Like, he used to be like outdoors, man. He's like, he don't even play around. He was in Utah. And I don't remember the name of whatever the mountain was he was climbing, but he was climbing up the side of this sheer rock cliff. And he was like, James, I had to be 200-something feet in the air, bro. And he said, from above me, this little, like, debris starts to fall. And I'm like, what you mean? He's like, just like little debris, like little small rocks and dust and stuff starts to fall down. And he's like, I'm suspended there. I got the rope. And he said, I'm looking up. And he said, I could have swore I saw movement. And I was like, okay, well, I thought this was just a rock face. He's like, yeah, but you know, on these rock faces, they have these little ledges and these little areas where you can stop and, you know, get a little rest. But he says he keeps on getting this debris falling down on him. And so he figures it's a bird or it's, you know, some kind of little small animal that's maybe stuck on a ledge. So he keeps climbing up. And broad daylight, 2:00 in the evening, he says something starts to crawl down at him. And I'm like, what do you mean crawl down? He's like, man, you're not going to believe this. And when people say that, I know they get ready to get into something that scared the hell out of them, because they have to convince themselves to tell me what really happened. So that's the process of them beginning the process of coming to terms with, okay, I'm about to share this with somebody.
Right.
And that's how you know, because you're like, man, you're not going to believe this. That's him talking to himself. He's not really talking to me. And he says, man, I saw these fingers. And he said, the first thing I saw was these very, very long fingers. And I was like, well, what's long? He's like, the size of 4 of our fingers. He's like, they were tan, and it kind of blended into the rock. He said, it wasn't like this thing was, it wasn't like it was see-through. He said it was more like chameleon color, like it's the same color as the rock. He said, but I could clearly see these long fingers. And he said, next thing you know, I see an elbow. He said, next thing you know, I see an arm. He said, next thing you know, I start to see a head. And before he knew it, climbing down towards him was this creature that he described as skinny and had like a humanoid head, but these very, very long, sharp front teeth that was hanging out of its mouth. And it had these flat lips. And I was like, bro, what are you doing to such a...
Like a chameleon or something, huh? Like some kind of chameleon creature?
Yeah, but he's described as being like a very malnutritioned teenager. Huh. Like a very, very small, skinny, like somebody had starved them to death teenager. But the eyes, he said the eyes were slit like a snake's eyes. He said they were yellow. And he said it had these long, like, fangs. He said it starts coming down towards him. And I'm like, well, what do you mean coming down? And I was like, how far away? And he was like, man, this thing had to be 190 to 100 feet. But he said, but it's coming down slowly, almost like it thinks I can't see it. And I'm like, what? And I'm actually cursing. And I'm like, so what do you do? He said, at first I'm thinking, okay, it's the middle of the day. Maybe I'm dehydrated. I'm hallucinating. So he said he's there for a second. He's holding on. He's looking, but it's moving slowly. He said it's almost as if this thing is trying to ambush him and sneak up on him. He said then it starts moving to the right, like it's circling around him. And that's when he realizes, man, this is something real. This is something very, very real. And I don't know anything about rock climbing at all, because I'm not about that life where I'm climbing up no rock. I do not need to take the risk of falling off no rock.
Right. And
he was like, I said, so what do you do? He said, man, I started going down. And I was like, well, to go down, don't you have to like unplug a anchor and plug another one in? He was like, yep. And he said, I did it as fast as I could. And he said, I started going down. And he said, once this thing realized that I realized that it was there, it just stayed still. And he said, I started working my way back down. I was like, well, how long did it take to get back down? He said, it took me about 45 minutes to get all the way down without killing myself. And I was like, did you keep your eye on it? He said, man, I kept my eye on it as much as I could. He said, but the further I got away, the more it blended in. And he said it got to the point to where he couldn't tell where it was anymore. And I was like, oh, my God, what did you think he was going to do? He's like, I think the thing was going to kill me. And I was like, bro. Now, this guy's Army Ranger. He's the real deal. He ain't this is not somebody that's like, oh, I'm just going to call Dark Waters and tell him a story. This is the real deal fighting, killing machine. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, whoa, that's probably the worst one because of the situation he was in. Like, I probably would have fell off that rock and killed myself. I would have panicked. You know what I'm saying? I would have literally panicked and fell.
That's probably his training kicking in, though, from doing it. And I bet, because they get in those situations and they know not to panic. But, man, that made my stomach sick, actually, because I could picture what he was seeing. It's almost like I've seen something like that before, but I don't think I have.
I had never heard of anything like that before. But the craziest thing is, this is something that people do need to know. And I'll preferences with this. So I get on my Twitter account, I'll get people on Twitter saying, hey, Dark Waters, are there armies of cryptids that are coming closer to the inner cities and the towns and da-da-da-da-da. And like, people ask me the wildest stuff. And I'm like, yo, bro, there's no army of cryptids coming to do anything.
Right.
Like, you bugging. Well, it's just that I feel like, they're more prevalent and they're more, out there more than anything. And I'm like, yeah, you feel that way because you're consuming all this content full of lies. That's why you feel that way. But the truth of the matter is, I am hearing more and more of two encounters, way more demonic stuff than I've ever heard. Something's clearly going on with that. That's going haywire right now. And then when you start getting into rural areas of America, Canada, Mexico, down towards our border, oh my God, the people that are calling me, telling me stuff there with the things they're seeing is just insane. So there's a lot more activity going on. And I think a little bit is people know me a lot more. I've been around for about 3 years, and there's a lot of information on how to ways to contact me. But I'm hearing things that people are sending me emails. I read the emails, but I never repeat those email stories because I don't believe in, unless I spoke to you, I'm not going to retell your story because you can just write. You could be a great writer, but just the stuff that's coming in now, man, is frightening. I mean, it really, really is frightening. Demonic stuff in people's bedrooms, incubus, succubus, those type of things are off the chain. One couple I talked to,
black masses, black figures, dark figures. Are you getting that a lot more?
Yes. But I consider that to be demonic. So I kind of bunched that all in together.
Okay.
But yeah, I'm getting those. The worst one that and this is, I guess it's something that people should know. I talked to a couple that they decided that they were going to become swingers. A husband and a wife decided they were going to become swingers. And so they joined this little club of swingers and went out and did their thing. And
they just immediately decided, hey, let's become swingers. They got bored, I guess.
Well, it's a little bit more to it than that.
I'm sure.
I asked that same question. I said, hey, how do you go from being in a committed relationship to becoming swingers? And they said it all started off with porn. Mm-hmm. And they would watch porn, then they decided they wanted to do the real thing. So, but immediately after that first experience, they started having an entity every night visit them in their bedroom. And it started off with you kind of fondling his wife at night while she was asleep. And she thought it was him, but it wouldn't be him. And then it kept on getting progressively worse and worse and worse and worse and worse to the point to where they were waking up like with, as if they had orgasms from their sleep, both of them. So they ended up deciding that they weren't going to swing anymore. They don't look at any pornography. They don't do anything. They straight up like, we going to church every Sunday. We got to get rid of this foolishness. So just be careful what you invite into your bedroom, especially into your marriage.
I think that there's something really real to that because I produce podcasts on the side for money. That's kind of my other profession besides this, and there's a show I produce called Love, Sex, and the Hidden Agenda and Amalia is a friend of mine who she's one of the hosts on the podcast, and she talks she's been to the East and studied the Eastern mysteries and studied a lot of things under different gurus and stuff. And some of the things that she said she saw, because it's corrupted. A lot of those mystery schools were corrupted by people. But anyway, some of the things that she said she saw in the astral realm or when she was asleep, like parasites that would feed off people's orgasmic energy and stuff like it's insane. I can't explain it, but after listening to that and listening to other people's stories about, I guess you could say succubuses or whatever, it just depends, I guess, on what gender you are. That's a little freaky. I mean, it's one thing to be paralyzed in your sleep. It's a whole nother thing when you're being taken advantage of. That's insane.
But, people have to be careful what they invite into their bedrooms. You really, really have to be careful because once you open those doors, sometimes you can't close them. You'd be amazed at how many people I've talked to whose relationships, when they start talking about things with their wife, and I'd be like, well, do you guys, have you guys ever been swingers? Have you ever been this? You ever look at any kind of crazy porn? And then they'd be like, well, you know what? You're right. We did. And, it'd be husband who wife didn't want to sleep with him anymore. And now they're upset because he's upset because his wife doesn't want to sleep with him. Well, no, you introduce something else into your household, bro. I'm just saying that to say the stories and the encounters are so broad.
That's something you get a lot of.
What people are, not a whole lot, but I've been getting a lot more of it, and that's the problem. Because when I first started, I wasn't getting that kind of stuff, but now I'm getting a lot more of that type of thing, where it's just dark, demonic stuff that's going on with people. And again, I really believe it's because people open themselves up to it. And I don't think they had any intentions to open themselves up to anything like that. They just wanted to have a good time. But when you start looking at it, some people end up going, they start off as regular swingers, now they're on drugs, now their relationship is destroyed because they're just doing things that is not in the best interest of them as a couple, as a union, as a marriage. So just fair warning to people, be careful. Really, really be careful. If you're married and you got a wife, you got a husband, this should be respected.
I wanted to get into some questions here real quick while we got the chance with you. And I appreciate you hanging out with us all night. There's nothing cooler than listening to you tell stories, whether they're true or not. A lot of people are listening right now. I just checked the map on the network site, and there's people all over listening. Don has a question about, have you heard any stories about growling in a house or a bedroom? I'm sure you've heard that before, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It just depends on what type of growling he's talking about. If he's referring to Dogman, yes, but that's all demonic manifestations of what I believe to be demonic manifestations. Let me preface it with that. Other growling and groaning, which I would still consider all demonic manifestations. So, yeah, absolutely.
Catalina's asking, what about stuff that happens during eclipses? Is that just a tale or a folk tale, or do really crazy things happen during eclipses? Like lunar eclipses, maybe?
That's something I need to add into my questions when I'm asking people, because typically I don't even think to say, well, did this happen during an eclipse, or did it happen during a full moon, or I typically don't ask that. I just let people. I kind of get the encounter, but I never really get into the lunar or solar or cosmic consequences or circumstances around it. So I can't give you an honest answer on that because I never really that question never crossed my mind. So I can commit that from now on. When I'm starting to talk to people, I will ask about what was going on during that time frame, but I can't give you an accurate answer because I never even considered that, she's very smart because.
Yeah, that's a good question. Makes me wonder about full moons too,
Yeah, I mean, I just never considered that. So no, thank you, because I will. I promise you I will.
Something else you brought up earlier, and then we'll start to kind of wrap this up, is the knocks. And you specifically, this was earlier in the show, you specifically talked about 3 knocks. Now, this is something that I've heard before many times. almost like when I'm sleeping, as I'm either falling asleep or about to wake up, I'll hear 3 hard knocks at my door. And I'll jump up out of bed thinking someone's actually at my door and run and either open the door or look out the window and nothing's there. Nothing. And the knocks are real enough. It's not like you're in the dream. It's loud enough where it sounds like it's in this reality and it's waking you up, but nothing's ever there. Now, you brought that up earlier. Is that me? Like, am I letting spirits into my house when I open the door?
I believe you are. I believe you might be doing. I believe you may be doing so because here in Louisiana. So what people don't know about New Orleans is, back in the days, people would paint the ceiling of their porch blue like it was the sky, right? And that was to ward off spirits from trying to enter their house. And one of the things that for a very long time, voodoo, Christianity, because it all kind of melds and blends together down here a little bit. People know that if you hear 3 knocks at your door in the middle of the night, that there's no reason you don't open the door. You see what I'm saying?
Right.
You just don't open your door. So, yeah, I think you might be letting something in your house. I've experienced that where I would be going to sleep. Right when I'm going to sleep, I would hear 3 knocks.
Mm-hmm.
Like, bam, bam, bam. And then I'd be like, oh, okay. And I'll go to bed. Or 3 knocks will wake me up out of my sleep. That's happened a lot. But where I lived before, it was happening a whole lot. None of that stuff happens now. Because now, and one of the things I did, and I'll share this with you guys, when I moved to my new place, the first thing I did was take a permanent marker, and above my door frame, I wrote Emmanuel, I wrote the name Jesus, I wrote El Shaddai, I wrote every name of God that I could think of across the door frame. And I didn't write it down the side of the door frame because I figured, people be like, what the hell is this? But I wrote it above the door frame. And then I prayed over my door. I blessed the whole house with holy water. And I'm constantly in prayer. And I can honestly tell you, Joe, living in that other house, I didn't sleep. I just didn't sleep. I didn't realize how well I was resting. I mean, how unrested I was until I got here. Now, when I sleep, I'm like, I'm gone. I'm out. It's done. There's no, I'm partially asleep. I'm out. I'm out like a light switch. When we get off the phone, it takes me a little while to fall asleep, but once I'm gone, I'm done. I'm out of there. So, but I did do that on my door frame because I learned that, you don't want anything negative to cross over and come into your house. And it's going to come through your door. You got to let it into your door. So, some people say it'll come through the window to do this. No, it's going to come through your door.
Yeah, there's a whole thing that I've seen even in some, I guess you could say, esoteric texts where they talk about warding and praying over your house constantly. Not just that, but keeping it clean. And I was going to ask you, I guess this will be my last question because I'm curious about this because I've seen where even people reporting paranormal activity in their homes and stuff like that. And then if you go in there and you actually clean it, I mean, physically clean it, and then pray over it, everything seems to work. But where a lot of this activity happens is in places of congestion. Like if somebody, I'm not saying people are slobs, but where they're not cleaning up. And it seems like,
no,
I wonder if
you hit the nail on the head.
I wonder if these things are they're attached to filth almost. Do you see what I mean? Is that true at all?
No, absolutely. I believe that's true. Just recently, I was in the process of buying a house for someone to flip it, and his mother and grandmother lived in the house, and they were hoarders. And that house, while I was in that house, taking pictures of it, something came up on me, and it had the smell of an old man. You could literally smell an old person, like an old person just ran and jumped in your face. Then I started feeling nauseous, and I felt like I had to vomit, so I had to leave out of the house, right? I go outside, and I start to feel better, and I go back in, and I'm taking pictures because you need pictures to figure out what you're going to do with it, and I get this silhouette, a white silhouette of a man, in the film, in the picture, And it was only in one picture, but it was like literally like right in my face. And I was like, oh man, they got something in this house. So I called them and I said, man, y'all got something in that house, man. That's why this house is having so many problems with us getting it sold. Because I still have the house under contract. It's going through a succession. This is the longest succession I've ever seen a property take. And the grandmother said that, yeah, you know, I think there's a demon in that house or something demonic in the house. I was like, oh, great. You wish you could have told me that crap before I went in there. You know what I'm saying?
That'd have been nice to know.
That would have been nice to know. So, yeah, absolutely. I think they take a hold of that filth and just thrive on chaos and disorder. And so I think they thrive and feed on that. So, you know, you keep your house clean. Like, there's one thing for your house to get messy. Like, my house right now is messy. Like, the bed not made. You know, like I need some dishes washed, stuff like that. But stuff that take 30 minutes to clean. That's messy, but filthy and dirty is boxes stacked everywhere, roaches in the corners. When you start seeing stuff like that, then you know there's some kind of problem. Garbage everywhere, hoarding where there's, you know, where it's just like, really? You can't even walk through your house. Now you know something's there. There's one thing to be a little messy. We all get messy because we get busy. But there's another thing to just be trifling. Right. You know, because nobody wants to just readily live like that. You know, there's got to be something going on with you for you to even want to live in those kind of conditions.
Well, that kind of validates some of the things that I've heard and even experienced. Well, we've only got a couple of minutes left here. I want to make sure that everybody knows where they can listen to you and check out all your stuff at the network, and just go ahead and plug away by all means.
It's Dark Waters Radio. If you can find that on the Paranormal Talkstream Live channel. And then the website is iamdarkwaters.com. That's where you can find all the exclusive content. On that front page, you'll find the best stories that I have. I have them all there for free, which are some of the stories that were on YouTube. There's still a little bit of content on YouTube, but it's all been, majority of it has been migrated away from YouTube. So all the free stuff that was on YouTube is going to be free on the website. Every day I'm moving more and more files over and going to be listing that for people to listen to. So iamdarkwaters.com. I promise you, if you take a listen, you will not be disappointed. And there's plenty of content there. Like the last album, El Shaddai, is there. It's a great album that you can listen to. The next one should be done hopefully by next Wednesday. I'll be releasing that one. Then the Wednesday after that, another one. Then I'll probably take a break for like a month, then do 2 more. So there's plenty of stuff out there for you to listen to.
Hard-working man, for sure. And you do good work, man. And I really appreciate you coming on the show and sharing this stuff with us once more. I'll have to do it again sometime. And you guys go check out his website. And thank you again, Dark, for coming on Lighting the Void. It's been a real pleasure.
It's been a pleasure, buddy. Good talking to you.
All right, guys, that's it. That was Dark Waters. Go check out the website, iamdarkwaters.com and Dark Waters Radio. And you guys, if you're listening live, don't forget that after the show, The Secret Teachings with Ryan Gable is coming up next on the Fringe FM. You'll definitely want to check that out. And also, don't forget that this show was produced by the Fringe FM and cannot be syndicated without written permission, and music was by Bundy, Chronox, Kevin MacLeod, Space Station, and Carbon-Based Life Forms. We'll see you guys tomorrow night. We're going to be talking about science and spirituality. Alex from the Skeptico podcast is going to be here with us. It's going to be a cool night. We'll see you guys then. Good night.
On this program do not necessarily reflect those of the Fringe FM, KTLK Digital Broadcasting, its sponsors, affiliates, or staff. Listener discretion is advised. We told you weeknights on the Fringe FM are now even better, and we mean it.
Do it live!
Where else can you hear the best shows and the best talent? Kick off your evening with our newest host, Alex Exum, live at 7 p.m. Pacific, 10 Eastern. Hang out with me, Joe Roop, on Lighting the Void at 9 Pacific, midnight Eastern. Ryan Gable expands your mind on the secret teachings at midnight Pacific, 3 a.m. Eastern. We're bringing the heat every single night. Fire it up, The Fringe FM.
Yahoy there. This is Gigi from Shift Happens. And holy shit, you're listening to KTLK, The Fringe FM. Hey, don't you dare turn that stick